This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back. Hope you are having a wonderful start to this interesting spring, I will say. I am here today with my co-host. I almost forgot why I was here. I didn't forget why I was here, but my brain just went dead. It's okay. I am here today with my co-host Bianca, and this, of course, is our monthly welcoming into your home from our homes of Bose's Books.
Hello.
Hello. Yes. And it is technically officially spring. So how is your spring so far? I know you're not quite enjoying your weather in Florida.
Well, it's gotten better. We had like 3 days of freezing cold, but the past I'll say 4 days has been good. I've just had to dress in layers, so.
That's pretty common here. Layers is basically the game plan of any German resident, or European resident rather, during this time of year. And then again in fall, you dress in layers. And even in the winter, layers is important because while it's freezing outside, every place you go into is about a gajillion degrees.
Not a gajillion.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. I understand that is obviously a gross, oversight, but it feels like that. I mean, have you ever been in one of those restaurants or stores that because it's winter, it doesn't matter what it is outside, it's like flaming hot, like you've just walked through the doors of hell?
No, because I live in the South, so everywhere is freezing.
Okay. Well, imagine the opposite spectrum of that anytime it's remotely chilly outside.
They're just like, you need heat. All the heat. Here is hell.
Yeah, pretty much. The other thing that drives me batty about some of the Germans, I apologize if you're German and listen to us, but hey, I got a bone to pick. It drives me batty, okay? They don't dress for the weather. They dress for what it should be outside based on the month it is. Does that make any sense to you?
Not really, no.
So it's like 60 degrees outside, right? Or 55, 60 in that time, in that frame, right? And I'm in either a t-shirt or a long sleeve shirt and jeans. They still have their winter coats on because it is still winter.
Oh, no.
It's the same, and it starts in September. It could be warm outside. It could be 55 with the sun shining, which means you don't really need layers. You're comfortable in a thin long sleeve shirt or a short sleeve shirt with maybe a jacket or a hoodie just in case the wind picks up or you go into a shaded area. No, they will already be in coats and hats and boots and stuff because but it's October or it's November, and I'm but it's 60. I don't.
You sounded like you were about to break out in a rap there for a second. You were like, coats and boots and hats and stuff. Coats and boots and hats and stuff.
It's a German winter rap. But it needs to be the background needs to be polka music. It would make it even better. No offense. I know polka is not really their thing here, but you hear a lot of music that's polka-esque when you're at beer fests and stuff. So anyway.
Oh goodness. Well, since this is a book podcast.
It is a book podcast, not a weather podcast, but I think I'd be really funny at a book podcast. Which, what's funny, and that is my daily dose of funny, is TikTok.
I think that's everybody's dose of funny nowadays.
It is. It sounds bad. It shouldn't be my way to wind down, but it is. And a lot of time it's how you and I converse with each other. Some days the only words we speak to each other are sending each other TikToks with emojis to follow them, no words. And when that happens, a lot of time, I'd say 80% of the content we send each other is book related, because that is actually how we became friends, was because of the internet and books. So you sent me one that I'm like really baffled on, but it falls into the, you and I have talked a lot in the last, I'd say 4 episodes about there just being a lot of really weird, like, excuse me stuff on the book talk side of TikTok. And you sent me one that I am still completely baffled on exactly what is going on. So I'd like you to explain it, because I feel like a lot of the listeners that we have, which I say a lot, I know of 3 of you. So hi.
Hi, all 3 of you.
Hi, all 3. 4, Sabrina. Okay, so 4. I know 4 of you. I know I have 4 listeners. And then do we listen to ourselves? Yeah, probably. So anyway, all of the people that I know actually listen to us also do like book talk things. So maybe they know and would like the tea on it, or don't know. And that is this whole Lucy Bloom situation. Again,
I think the whole world is kind of like, the whole book talk world is kind of baffled by this, because it came completely out of left field.
Right.
So Lucy Bloom is an author. I have never read this person's books.
Me neither.
I'd heard the name just from working in bookstores and libraries, but I wasn't really like intimate with anything of her.
I won't lie. When I first heard the name Lucy Bloom, I could have sworn that was a character's name from a book I read, not an author.
Well, see, and I thought it was a young adult author. I think there's another Lucy Bloom out there, and this is a different Lucy Bloom.
Okay.
So, anyway.
Well, that would suck for that other person then. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
But this person, Lucy Bloom, has like a Goodreads page. Obviously, she's an author, and she also has other social media pages like Instagram and TikTok, just promoting her stuff on there, basically.
Right. That's what they do. That's what they should do. Okay.
And someone gave an honest review of her book. I have not read the book. I really don't know that much about the book, but the reader gave an honest review, and like she stated what she didn't like and what she did like. Like, she gave both sides. It was a fair review as far as book reviews go. I think we all know book reviews can get a little touch and go.
Yeah,
like
some people aren't honest. They're malicious. But this one, from what I understand, this is the part I do understand. From what I understand, it was very honest and genuine in the review. It wasn't a malicious review. It wasn't out of spite or hate or any of those things. It was like, here is my honest review after I finished said book.
And evidently Lucy Bloom did not appreciate that honest review, and replied back to that reviewer saying, you obviously didn't understand the material, or you didn't read it thoroughly enough. I don't know why you spend your time reading books if you're gonna leave reviews like this, and completely tore the person apart. Give me one moment. My cat is meowing to get out the door. I did not realize she was in here.
Hi, Babe. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Babe. She's an internet celebrity, and she will give you her opinion like real quick. So
sorry about that.
It's okay. I was telling the folks who Babe was. I was like, this is Babe. She's an internet celebrity, and she will tell you her opinion like real quick.
I didn't even know she was in here. I was like, what is that noise? It was like a howl. I was like, what in the world?
She's like, Mom, I am not okay.
Anyway, she's out now. Brad can take care of her. So Lucy Bloom clapped back at this reviewer, and the reviewer was like, what are you going on about? Like, I said both good and bad things. I'm not discouraging people from reading your book. I just gave an honest review. Right. And Lucy Bloom ended up like writing paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs about how this reviewer was doing her dirty and not appreciating her work. And it became apparent that she's not good with constructive criticism, period.
Well, I mean, we've heard, for example, we'll talk about our beloved queen for a second, Colleen. I believe she has stated several times that early in her career, she did read reviews, but that she doesn't anymore. if I remember correctly. I think she has stated like she doesn't read them anymore for this exact reason, is that like you're going to be defensive of your own work. But the difference is I don't think she would ever go to the spans that it seems like Lucy Bloom has to defend herself. And I think it's beyond defending herself. I think it's bullying and childish at this point.
That's exactly what it's turned into. It's turned into a bullying, because Lucy Bloom's argument is that if you're not an author, you can't be a book reviewer.
Is she the one that said that? We discussed that a few months ago. Okay. So see, I think that is bull crap, because I was actually texting with my friend Kyle the other day, and we were talking about like fanfics, and we were talking about how harsh some people are when they review. And I said, let's be honest, like this is why I've never written a book. I have over the years, and I have in notebooks, I have ideas for books that I would like to write. And I've talked to you about this because you and Susan and Jenny and you guys had helped me create like this kind of really funny, just joking, but not really, like scenario of what I could write my book about a couple of years ago. Quite a funny conversation that I actually saved. But the people like Lucy Bloom, the authors like Lucy Bloom, and then the malicious reviewers are why I will never start. Or why, if I do, I will probably never let anyone see it. I mean,
just publish under a fake name. Do a pen name.
Yeah. But either way, like we were talking about that, and I think it's really sad that a lot of readers who want to become writers feel that way. So first off, she says that only writers could be reviewers, which I think is crap, because you would not have very many reviews. Like you want people reading books to review books, because that's who yes, a lot of authors are readers. That's why they became writers. They loved written word. They loved storytelling so much that they became the writers that they loved. But I don't agree with her in that sense. And I think all around, unfortunately, she's a bully, which made me less likely to read anything ever of hers. Just being very honest.
After everything came out, I'm looking up what the name of her newest book is, because I kind of forget.
I won't lie, I'm looking at the
it's the manuscript.
Well, I see a lot of things under the name Lucy Bloom that instantly they're Bianca No-Nos anyway.
Okay.
If it's the same Lucy Bloom. If not, there is a Lucy Bloom that writes. Okay, there is another Lucy Bloom that writes. Do you remember the Chuck Tingles that Jenny and I used to read because they're funny? Basically, it's the only reason we read them. They're absolutely hysterical. But they are Bianca No-Nos. You like us telling you about them, but you would never read them. It looks like there's a Lucy Bloom that writes stories like Chuck Tingles, but they're female every time.
Well,
so I don't know if it's the same.
Well, this one, she wrote the manuscript, and if you go to Goodreads and you click on the manuscript, everyone has tanked the reviews on this book because of how she treated that reviewer.
Which I mean,
that's a whole other issue in and of itself. But in my opinion, at least now Lucy can see like this behavior's not okay.
The repercussions of her actions are basically, the karma is basically coming back to bite her. Now I don't agree with the people because I think that's one of the things that people hate so much about Goodreads is that you can write a review before a book ever releases, which the reason you do that is because, like myself, I just finished a book that is not even released yet. And I have to go in and write a review for it now, which gets posted to the website that I'm a member of that gets me this book. But then part of the agreement is I also post it to Goodreads. So clearly you should be able to post reviews before a book releases, because that tells someone, for example, if someone listens to us and they are aligned, you and I have very similar reading interests, but we also have different. And if someone is aligned with you, for example, on what you like and dislike, they're going to look at your reviews, either here on the podcast or that you might write for UWF or whatever, and go, okay, well, I am going to read that book then, because I usually like everything that she does. Which, in my opinion, is just what this person who was reviewing Lucy Bloom's book was doing. She probably has people that follow her either on Goodreads or they're just her everyday friends or whatever it may be, that she's like, I'm writing an honest review because people that align with my reading habits will appreciate and make the decision then to read or not read.
Yeah.
That's what a review basically is. There are people that I have read their reviews over the years and they just seem so malicious that I don't even like pay attention to them anymore. If they say they didn't like a book, I'm not going to be like, well, I'm not going to read it then, because they just seem to be malicious. And then there are other people that seem genuine that I'm like, okay, they liked this. I'll probably like it too. I'm going to give it a shot. And sometimes I don't like it. But again, that's where it's my place to write my review or give my star rating that it wasn't for me, because not every book is for everyone. I don't understand. So I guess that's why I'm so confused about this, is like how rude Lucy became as quickly as she did.
Yeah, it was like an instantaneous reaction.
And maybe that's why I keep saying I don't understand. Because I understand what has happened. I just don't understand the situation.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people do, because it was very unwarranted. Like I said, I read the initial review and it was very fair. Like, it wasn't tearing Lucy apart. It was just saying, hey, these are the good things about the book. These are the bad things about the book.
I didn't read it, but the TikTok you sent me actually like summarized that specific review, and I didn't think anything sounded bad at all.
That's what, if I was scrolling through it, I would have been like, okay. Like, I wouldn't think, oh, that person's being mean. Like, no one took it that way except for Lucy. So
she's only written 4 books. I'm reading like a little bit about Lucy. Oh, I don't think this bodes well at all for her, because it lists here that she is a keynote speaker and consulting CEO with a background in advertising and international aid. She is the ambassador for Australia Reid, a member of the Australian Society of Authors and the Australian Writers Guild, and the Country Women's Association. I think her behavior is not going to bode too well with any of those associations and societies that she is a member of.
Yeah, you wouldn't think.
No.
But I haven't seen any repercussions, but I also haven't been down that rabbit hole yet, so.
No, I haven't either. But I think it's a good topic of conversation to bring up. Like, this is going to deter readers from ever wanting to review things, I'm afraid, unfortunately. Like, I think some of people are probably looking at this going, well, fine, I'm just going to never review anything. But I think there's a certain level of skin you have to have if you're a writer, a actress, anything in the limelight, even an influencer, right? I think there's a certain level of skin and like allowing things to roll off your back kind of person that you have to be. And it sounds like she's just not it.
And so you have to be able to take constructive criticism.
Right.
And
now,
it seems like Lucy can't.
I understand if somebody's like 1 star, she sucks, blah, 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 she's a boop, 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 like, then I'd be like, whoa. But even then, I think I would just be like blocked, or like I'd contact Goodreads and be like, can this be removed? Like, I would take steps, but like if someone just wrote a review and was like, hey, really didn't like it, not for me. Like, prime example I would give of like being able to take constructive criticism as an author. There is an author I follow and I really like named Stacey Rourke. And she said the other day, she said, readers, as a kindness to authors, if you see us purposely post warnings, she had posted a warning on a book that said, this is a cliffhanger ending. There is another book that is coming later. So this book specifically has a cliffhanger ending. And she said that. She said, if we post a warning to you, whether it be cliffhanger, trigger warning, whatever, do not write a horrible review saying, oh, it was a cliffhanger, or, oh, it had this thing in it I don't like when you were warned in advance. Now, could you add that to your review and say I was frustrated that it was, the author said so, but like I think I've talked about this before. It was the one book that I DNF'd.
Yeah.
It was given to me as a review, just to remind everybody, and I had to write a review for it. And I contacted the author in advance of not being able to finish it and said, I understand that you gave me warnings for this book, and I told you that so far I've not found anything that was past my limit, and I would still like to give it a try. And you said, okay. So just so you know, I did not finish this book. So if you don't, I don't feel like I should write a review. And she said, no harm done. Totally understand. Please still write your review and put, I did not finish and why. And so I did. And I said, it was given to me as a review. I spoke with the author personally. She even gave me warnings for things that might be a trigger or might be too much for me. And I didn't think it would be, so I went ahead. And just so you know, it was too much for me, and I DNF'd the book. Still, but I think I even still gave it 3 stars and was or 3 or 4 and was overall, the story is great. The author is a great author. She knows how to write a story. It's just her descriptions and some things that happened I was not there for, could not be present for. And I think that's okay. If you're posting a trigger warning like that, but posting a review that's rude when you knew what was coming is wrong, but going and slapping someone on the face across the internet like she did is also wrong. I don't know.
The book talk world's great.
Right?
In other book talk news though,
it can
we learned the proper pronunciation of one author's name, or at least yes. I did.
I did too. I don't remember if you sent me the video or if I just found it organically on my own, but I was like, huh.
So there's a very prominent female author. The way I think most everyone pronounces her name is Jodi Picoult.
That's how I've always said it.
Same. It's Picoult.
Right.
And she got on TikTok and was like, y'all, my name is Jodi Pico. I was what?
And she went what's funny though is the other ways that she was saying it that people have actively said it to her or around her were not even remotely close. I could understand it saying Jodi Picoult because I think you and I have even talked about her and said that name that way.
Yeah.
Right? But the other ones that she was not this, not this, not this. I was how did those people even get any of those names out of what I see written?
But now whenever I see her name, I'm just going to think of Pico, Pico de Gallo.
I know. I think she said you could use that, Pico de Gallo. Actually, I was eating some earlier tonight, and I was Jodi Pico. So, yeah, if you have been a longtime fan of Jodi Picoult, and you've been Jodi Picoult, it's okay. No harm, no foul, but from now on, it is Jodi Picoult. Which I think is hysterical, and the way she treated it was so funny.
Oh, she's hilarious. If you're on TikTok, go follow her. She posts some good stuff.
Prime example of being an author and having a thick skin and letting things roll off your back.
Yes.
We
do have one other piece of TikTok news. Yeah, I think this is a really positive one. I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Okay, so briefly, I'll bring it up. Everyone knows that there are current TikTok hearings going on as to could be the ban of TikTok in the United States. It's actually not just in the United States there. If you are a Canadian, there are things in place for you as well. I encourage you, American, Canadian alike, go look into those, see what you can do, see what side you stand on, and go from there. But one of the things they're doing in this hearing is he's not the founder of TikTok because TikTok was sold a few years ago.
He's the CEO.
Company. Okay, CEO. He's very well spoken. I think he's great at what he does. And he is basically in these hearings presenting to members of our Congress and of our political look on why TikTok is important and why they should not ban it. Which that's a whole nother thing I encourage you to look at. Some of it is quite hysterical on the questions that are being asked and what some of our politicians believe.
We're not even going to get
No, that's why I said do it on your
that.
own. It's quite funny. Do it on your own. I encourage you, again, regardless of what side you're on. It's funny. Go check it out. But what I thought was so endearing is he actually brought up how book talk in general, TikTok side, or book talk, on TikTok, was bringing readers together, connecting readers with authors, and essentially creating more readers than we have had in a while. And that's like a summed up thing of what he said. But he was like, basically he wanted to present the fact that it is actually bringing literacy into more homes. Sorry, my chair is squeaky.
Well, I think the whole thing was that a bunch of Congress people were trying to convey the fact that TikTok was just people dancing and goofing off. Like it didn't have any real
teenagers and pranks
it didn't have real value to it. And he was like, no, here is what TikTok has done for millions of people across the world. And here's a specific section of TikTok called Book Talk that has brought people together for a specific purpose.
Like, I won't lie. At one point when TikTok first came out, when I got it, all it really was were dancing, not even just teenagers, even adults. And I don't mean this rudely to anyone, but like it was like dancing teenagers, lip syncing teenagers, pranks, and then like half naked adults dancing, or like there was a lot of military dudes doing workouts, and I was like, never mind, and I deleted it. And then a couple of years later, it started being refined better, and so I don't even see any of that. It really is curated to you. I basically see like cooking thing. There's a couple of comedians I follow on there, so I see things similar to theirs, but they're like, I guess I'd call them like online comedians. Like now they have shows, but like Ben Bernard, he does the states. He's the 50 states guy.
Yeah.
And then there's the church lady guy. Like I follow some people like that, but most of what I follow is like cooking stuff, book talk, royal talk, because I'm obsessed. And then like gardening. So I see only those things, and I actually learn a lot from TikTok. I also follow a lot of ASMR because it helps me sleep, but that's all I see. And I think it does bring a lot of benefit. And I was so happy when the video was posted of him talking about how, reading, it's bringing more people into reading. And I think that's a positive for sure. But I use it basically for learning about my next read. I've learned some gardening tips. I've picked up some new recipes that I hadn't made before or not even ever heard of. Because some of the recipes I found on there are from different ethnicities, and now I can bring them into my kitchen and share their food. And I think it's fantastic. I don't know. It just made my heart swell with glee.
Heart swell with glee. I love that. I want that on a t-shirt.
It's like the Grinch, His heart grew 3 times that day.
Well, we're going to move into our next segment, Adaptation Minute.
I'm going to let you take over this one because this is pretty much all you.
So, I've talked about this the past few episodes. Daisy Jones and the Six has finally come out, everyone. Clap, clap, clap,
woo,
clap.
Woo.
Sabrina and I sat down yesterday and we binged the first 6 episodes, I think. There's 10 episodes in all. We only took a break to go grab some food, and then we were right back on the couch. We were glued to that screen. It is so good. I love it. Recommend it. It's on Amazon Prime. So far, the first 6 episodes are very close to the book. The only thing that I've noticed that they've changed, which it has been a while since I read the book, but the only noticeable difference is that Karen, the keyboardist or pianist, no, she plays keyboard. They made her British in the show, which I mean, it's fine. It's Suki, Suki Whitehouse, is that her name?
I honestly don't remember.
She's a model somewhere. But she's British, and she kept her British accent. In the book, she is American, but I think that's the only thing that's really changed. But it is so good. Warren, the drummer, has my heart. I love him to death. So please go watch it if you are able. I don't think there's anything bad in that series either. I mean, there's a couple of, I'll call them quote sex scenes, but they don't show anything. Like it's Bianca friendly. So
There you go.
Yeah, I'm very happy with it.
Which I have a whole thing I need to send you anyway. I found a lady on TikTok that, you know, for people that are like, oh, sex scenes, people really are naked or they really are doing something. She's a like modesty and sex scene coordinator.
Oh yeah, I follow her.
Oh, isn't that like the neatest thing? I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know like these like different things that she tapes to people and how I was like, oh, what?
And she asks everyone's comfortability level. So if they're like not comfortable with like a lot at all, she's like, I got you, boo. Like,
yeah, and she'll like go to the director and say like, this actor is not comfortable with what you want to do, but let me present another idea. When you brought up that it has some scenes, but it's like Bianca friendly, that lady made me think about like making TV shows like friendly for people that like don't want the, like, it looks like they really are going their scenes.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was really neat.
Well, and their fade to black scenes, like they start doing stuff and then it's just insinuated that stuff is done. So
that's okay.
Yeah. I'm very happy with it. The next adaptation, which coincidentally is by the same author, that now that I think about it, Daisy Jones and the Six is written by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Mm-hmm. And so is the next one I'm going to talk about. It is called One True Loves. I just read the book last week. Was that last week? I read it in a couple of days. It was so good. I loved it.
I had not heard about this one.
The movie comes out in April. So next month, which we're recording on the 26th, so literally next week it will be out, I'm assuming. I looked it up on Google. I think it's just going to be in theaters. But it has some high-profile names. Philippa Sue from Hamilton. Mm-hmm. She's playing Emma, the lead actress. Simu from Shang-Chi and from our Canadian store show. What was it called?
Kim's Convenience.
Yeah, Kim's Convenience. Simu, he's going to play
show.
One of the love interests. I was like, yes, I have good people in here. And I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, it's so good. I will say trigger warning for the book. Obviously, I don't know how the show is going to be. For the book, it does involve grief, like people passing and having grief about that. I did not know that that's what that entailed, so I just figured I would warn others before they picked up the book. Although I do recommend it. It was really, really good. I literally read it in like 2 days.
Cool. I had not heard of it, believe it or not. I don't know how, but I had not heard of that book at all yet. So
it's one of her lesser known ones. Obviously, Taylor is known for the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and then Daisy Jones. I think Daisy Jones is like her second most popular. Mm-hmm. But One True Loves is one of her earlier books, and it still holds up. I think it's really good.
Cool. I did have, actually, this time, believe it or not, I had one thing I wanted to mention and remind everybody about in Adaptation Minute, and that is the second season of Shadow and Bone dropping on Netflix. I have chosen to hold off because I had actually not finished the Grishaverse, and I understand that what I would be watching I have already finished, but the way they're kind of intertwining everything from the Grishaverse into the seasons, I felt like I was missing something. So
same. That's why I also stopped. I don't think I even finished season 1 because I realized, I think I finished the whole Shadow and Bone trilogy, but I didn't read her other ones.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And the only reason I remember that is because when it came out, I think I had messaged you and I asked you about watching it. And I had only read like the first 2 of Shadow and Bone and the first one of, what is it, Six of Crows?
Yeah.
So when I realized they were kind of going ahead and intermingling everything, which it is what happens in the Grishaverse, just in separate books, I decided that I would wait. I I won't lie though, I read book 2 and I think I texted you about this or said it on Marco. I don't remember, but like book 2 of Shadow and Bone was just
I felt the same way. It got very, for lack of a better word, detailed. Like, I just felt like they were just traveling a lot.
Yeah, but they were detailing things that I didn't need to know that I don't think pertains to anything later.
Yeah.
And it was like, and then the last like 3 or 4 chapters is when I was like, okay, this should have been the meat of the book, not all of that BS back there. Like this could have
I can agree with that.
Condensed, and almost book 2 should have either been part of 3 or just a novella, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I wanted to remind everybody that season 2, if you are all the way caught up or you just don't care and you're going to watch it either way, it is out and available. I think it's been out for a couple of weeks, so maybe you've already watched it. I don't know, but it's available.
No.
I haven't contributed to an adaptation minute in a while.
That is true. You left it up to me, so I'm glad you had something.
I do this thing where I go on kicks, and either I am watching a lot of television, or I'm like reading even more and only reading, or I'm listening to podcasts and reading, but not watching TV. This past week, I have spent a lot of hours of my life on this 8-part deep dive on a podcast / YouTube called Crime Weekly that they did on Heyman Lee and Adnan Syed. Yeah, so that's where a lot of my life has been, that in the past week. But I do that.
Speaking of getting to the meat of things.
The meat and the bones of things.
We're going to get to the meat of our podcast now.
Yeah.
In honor of, this was Miranda's birthday month. Happy belated birthday, Miranda, formally on the podcast.
Thank you.
As we all know, Miranda's favorite book of all time is Alice in Wonderland.
Absolutely.
So I told her, hey, what do you want to read for your birthday month? And she was like, Alice. I was like, say less. Say less.
Yeah, I didn't really need to go into detail on that. I love retellings of Alice. I know a lot of Alice fans don't love retellings or didn't love the new movies. I loved the new movies, and I love retellings in general. So we're going to be talking about 2 different series that are retellings of Alice today. The way that we worked it out is actually Bianca and I have both read one of these, and it was a reread for both of us. And then the second one I have read, and it was a reread for me, but Bianca has not read, but plans to. And these are 2 of my favorite retellings of Alice, and a third I would like to just mention, honorable mention kind of thing. So I think I want to let you go first, because yours is the book series that we have both read, and this was a reread for both of us.
So mine was Splintered by A.G. Howard. It's a little bit
#1 in a series.
Yeah. I think the series is called Through the Looking Glass, or is that yours? I don't remember what my series is called, actually.
Hang on.
You'd think I'd know these things.
I'll tell you. So, Splintered #1 by A.G. Howard is also from the series of the same name, which is Splintered.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fun facts.
And I thought A.G. Howard, when I first read these books, or this series, it's been years ago. The whole time I was reading book 1 and 2, I thought A.G. Howard was a dude.
I think it's the Howard. I think Howard throws us off, because I thought the same thing. But it is, in fact, a woman.
It is, yes. She writes a lot of gothic, fantasy, and paranormal. There's usually like side of horror, some mystical stuff, and she has got some that are heavy in romance and others that are not. But for some reason, I don't know, just seeing the name, her name, and not looking any more into it. I just in my head had that she was.
Hey, the A stands for Anita.
Oh, cool.
It's on the copyright page of the book. I was like, oh, Anita, hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Anita. I love your books. She does write adult and literary romance, as well as young adult, and I think Splintered, in my opinion, would be in the young adult category.
Yeah, it's definitely YA.
Young adult romance, magical fantasy retelling, if you may.
Yeah, I'd probably just say YA fantasy. I think that would sum it up pretty well.
Yeah.
It is a little bit older. It was published in 2013, so do keep that in mind when you read this. Like, I had to remind myself when it was published because there are some references in here that kind like technology references that date it a bit. I was like, wait, let me put myself back in 2013.
Yeah, there's something that she says at one point because I know that we said that you were going to read this one and I was going to read the other one, but I may have done both.
That's fine. It's your birthday.
They were both rereads, honestly. So I wanted to remember when you started talking about this, like being part of it. But there was something that she says in there. It's pretty early on in the book that I had to also stop and go, oh, that was like 10 years ago that this was published. So she probably wrote it in like 2011. So technology wise, that makes sense. Yeah, I had to like stop and think about it for a second.
But Splintered, the book, opens up with a girl using dead insects to make art. And she claims that by killing them, it shuts them up. This implies that she can, in fact, hear bugs, and she can understand them and know what they are saying and feeling at all times. And the only way for her to shut those voices out is to kill them. And I was like, oh, I forgot it started like that.
I had as well, but I remembered about the bugs, but I had forgotten that. But in my head, I was just thinking like framed butterflies and stuff. Like, to me, it wasn't grotesque. It was the fact that she says it shuts them up that made me go, oh,
yes,
okay.
She is planning on going with her father in a couple of hours to the asylum to visit her mother. Her mother is in an asylum. And I put this quote in here: "At least one good thing has come out of my inherited insanity. Without the delusions, I might never have found my artistic medium." So this implies one of two things. One, her mother can also hear the bugs.
Mm-hmm.
Or two, she is just completely crazy, period.
Which for a good chunk of the book, this doesn't let anything go. But for the good chunk of the book, that is part of the thing that you are trying to figure out.
Yes.
Is her mother just crazy? Is she just crazy? What's real and what's not?
It's something she grapples with a lot. And we actually don't learn the main character's name for a few pages, but her name is Alyssa Victoria Gardner. Mm-hmm. She has had an obsession ever since she was little related to Alice Liddell, who was the girl who inspired Lewis Carroll for Alice in Wonderland. As it turns out, Alice was her great-great-great-grandmother. Mm-hmm. And she was not able to hear the bugs and understand them until she went through puberty. Once she hit puberty, that's when everything changed, and she realized that maybe her mother wasn't crazy, and maybe this is just how their family line works.
And when we say hear the bugs, it's not like suddenly their buzzing is extremely loud or anything. Like, it's like they're actually like talking and having a conversation to her and about her and around her.
Well, and we learned it's also not just bugs. She also hears flowers. Like, flowers will talk to her as well.
Which made total sense to me when you're talking about an Alice retelling. Because that's the whole flower patch, and she goes through it, and they're like, oh, she's not one of us, you know?
And Alyssa has recurring dreams that place her in Alice's shoes in the context of Alice in Wonderland. So she'll have dreams that she's on this chessboard. She's dressed in a blue dress with a lacy pinafore on. there's a white rabbit, except the white rabbit has no skin. He's literally just bones and bunny ears.
I thought that was creepy.
Oh, it's super creepy. And the Queen of Hearts always wants to chop Alyssa's head off.
Again, makes sense.
In every single dream. In every single dream, the cards always capture her, and she always loses her head, and that's when she wakes up. In real life, Alyssa skateboards at a place called Wonderland, aptly named. It's like a neon glow skate park. She's trying to do a fancy skateboard trick. I don't know what it is. I'm not a skateboarder. But she ends up wiping out. I forget what it is,
but I knew what she was referring to.
But she ends up wiping out. She like scratches up her leg. It's like all bloody and bruised. And Jebediah comes to help her, nicknamed Jeb. They've been friends.
His name. I'm sorry, but I know they refer to him as Jeb through the book. They don't really say Jebediah, but Jeb, really? You couldn't? Come on, Miss Howard. Jebediah. Sorry. No.
She and Jeb have been friends since childhood. And he just happens to work at Wonderland. So he sees her wipe out and he basically goes to help her. We find out that he is Taylor's boyfriend, and Taylor is a girl who bullies Alyssa about her Alice ancestry. And
she's a mean girl.
She's a very mean girl, and she's pretentious because this is how her name is spelled. Taelor. When you got a funky spelling like that of a normal name, I automatically don't like you. I'm sorry.
Hey.
You just have one extra letter. That's different. This girl completely changed how Taylor spelled.
And she didn't. In defense of her, and I'm not really defending her because she is a you-know-what. We don't choose the craziness our parents put upon us. I mean, Mirandia can't help it. Can't help it.
While Jeb is helping her fix her leg, they kind of get into a little argument. Alyssa is salty with Jeb for siding with her dad because Alyssa wanted to go study abroad in London, and they both basically were like, no, you're not going to. Since she is injured, Jeb offers to drive her to the asylum to meet her dad so they can go see her mom. And Jeb knows what's going on. Like, they've been friends literally forever. They share almost everything. So Jeb knows, like, the intricacies of what's going on with her life, except for the talking to bugs part.
You know, I think I would be super salty at him, though. I mean, come on, you're supposed to be my best friend, and you're, like, agreeing and having private discussions with my dad on what I should do or shouldn't do with my future.
Yeah, no, I think it's valid.
Yeah, I also understand, even though their closeness, because at one point it explains, like, it's one of those friendships, like, I'm sure everybody had one of these, but like you would walk into that person's house and like you didn't even knock or you didn't like ask to eat anything in the fridge. You didn't have to. Like you probably did when you first became friends with them. You would ask their mom like, hey, can I have this? But then like after a while they were like, why are you asking me? So you didn't ask, you didn't knock, like you just came on in. That's the kind of friendship they have. They like, Jeb just comes in the house. Jeb eats what he wants. He's friends with like her dad too. Like, yeah, it's a very close friendship. But I understand even with that closeness why she wouldn't tell even him about the bugs. Because I'm sorry, if I came to you, which maybe you wouldn't because you and I have some pretty messed up dreams. If I came to you and told you about the dreams I was having and then told you that the bugs were talking to me, I guarantee you're calling my husband to tell him I need to be evaluated. I'm just saying.
Well, because even her dad doesn't know. Like, that's something Alyssa has kept to herself. She hasn't told literally anybody because she doesn't want to go down the same road her mother has gone down.
No, because she looks at, like, how her mother is, like, viewed and treated and just kind of, like, looked at by everyone in the world and everyone that knows her mother is in an asylum. And, like, no one's really...
It's not just her mother. Alyssa's grandmother, Alicia, committed suicide after giving birth to Allison, who's Alyssa's mom. She had
Yeah,
jumped out a second-story window of the hospital to test her wings.
Which there's a lot of, I guess there should be trigger warning for this book. It's heavy in mental health discussion, basically, without actually saying that it's a mental health discussion. But there's a lot that really could be mental health. And for whatever reason, I find this series comforting, even though it has all of those things in it.
Well, and on the way to the asylum, Alyssa is doing some research on her phone, and she finds a website that talks about netherlings, which, for those who don't know, it's a dark race of supernatural beings who use their magic for mischief, and they stay connected to their kind by using plants and insects as conduits to the nether realm, basically describing what Alyssa is.
And I think it falls into like the Fae category, kind of technically.
Yeah, it's touching it. Yeah.
Yeah. Adjacent. Fae adjacent.
Jeb and Allison. No. Jeb and Alyssa. There's a lot of A names in this
There
book.
are a lot of A names, and I understand the significance of it. Alice, so it seems like every descendant of Alice, female-wise, has an A name, because Alyssa is her name, her mother is Allison, her grandmother was
Alicia.
So we just keep going. And yeah, it makes sense, but it does get kind of confusing when they're using first names a lot in the book, and you're like, wait. Who? Alyssa. Okay, Alyssa. Gotcha. You know?
Yeah. So they make it to the asylum. Jeb drops her off. Allison, her mother, is waiting outside for them with tea service.
She's
Allison,
comatose, right? If I remember correctly. Like in a comatose kind of state?
Not at this point. She was kind of alert.
Oh, okay.
There are some points where Alyssa describes seeing Allison at the asylum very comatose, like not really there. But
she's not always alert, though, if I'm remembering correctly. Is that right? Okay.
This particular one, she is. Allison sees that Alyssa is hurt, like she's limping and like not walking properly, and she leans down to a grasshopper on the table and says, "You were right." Evidently a grasshopper had seen her fall and told Allison that her daughter was injured. And Alyssa is just like, "Why are you telling on me? Rude." One of Allison's quirks is that she will only eat out of teacups, because that's what Alice did in Wonderland. So they have ice cream served in teacups. A fly lands on the table and says, "He's here." And both Allison and Alyssa understand him. And Allison notices that Alyssa hears the fly. So Alyssa sends Dad to fetch ice for her knee. She's like, "Oh, my knee really hurts. Can you go get me ice?" So that she can talk to her mom. Allison says there's a curse on their family. No one knows how to break it, except that it involves going down the rabbit hole. Allison then starts throwing out random threats to random objects, and then she gets choked by her hair. There's like some wind, and Alyssa tries to tell herself that the wind just blew Allison's hair around her neck, but she could tell that something else was going on. Alyssa calls for help, and Allison gets sedated and carted away back into the asylum.
I think that's what I was kind of thinking of when I was like, they don't treat her like, they're immediately treating her like she's crazy. I mean, she is in an asylum, so I know somebody's going to be like, "But Miranda." But I'm just saying, like, she obviously didn't do it to herself, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there are people who self-harm.
They do, but clearly you're not taking your hair and like trying to choke yourself with it, you know? Like, it was obvious, like, you know, Alyssa's sitting there with her. She saw she did not do it.
And one thing about this book is that it goes from past to present
Yes.
And it weaves the timeline together, so it can be a little difficult to know what's happening at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that in a second, but I just want to warn everyone that's how this book is. After they cart Allison back into the asylum, Alyssa's dad drives her to work. She works at a thrift store. And even though he's like, hey, we just went through that. Are you okay to work? She's like, yeah, I want to go to work. I just want to get my mind off things. And then she spots a pamphlet about electrotherapy in the car. Alyssa's dad basically says, this is a last resort. Your mom's just keeps getting worse. We're going to try this out in about a week. And Alyssa freaks out. She's like, no, you're not touching my mom like that. And they kind of part on bad terms.
The thought of electroshock therapy, though, I mean, I know it's come a long way, and it is not what we see on TV and stuff anymore. But it doesn't matter. Like, that just is terrifying to me.
Yes. The thought of that is beyond normal.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about the fact that there are tons of people that, like, they're like, well, you know what? You need electroshock therapy. And, like, in the end, like, they're not crazy, or they're, like, the pain. I just, yeah. Ugh. That killed me. I think that part, because I like her dad. I like the character of her dad. But when he said that, like, I got angry with him. I'm like, why would you put your wife through that? Like, why would you agree to putting your wife through that?
Well, and in the story, like, you can tell he's kind of defeated. Like, he's just tired. He's been doing this for
a very long time.
Years.
Now. Yeah, I don't remember. They say, but I don't remember. But yeah.
Okay. She went into the asylum when I think Alyssa was 5, because that's when something else happens that I'll get to in a few minutes, actually.
And Alyssa is either 16 or 17.
She's 16. 16,
because that's part of the reason why he says no, that she can't do the study abroad program, is because he feels like she's too young. So I remembered she's not 18. She's a little bit younger. A lot of times our heroines are 17, 18 in YA. Alyssa is, like you said, she's 16. I mean, she's young, but still, that would be 11 years that he's raised Alyssa. And does she have a sibling?
No, she's only.
Okay, she's only. I'm confusing it with another one. That would be a long time, whether it's an only child or multiple children, to have to raise as a single parent while also knowing that your spouse was in there struggling and you couldn't do anything for them. So yeah. I get her father being defeated, but still, like, when he said that, I got a little hot.
Well, Alyssa did too. She storms into work, and it's a thrift store, and I think it's like a Friday night, so she already knows it's not going to be popping. So she gets on the computer, and she starts to try to find that website again about the Netherlings. She finds it, but the web page doesn't really pull up, and instead a weird text appears on the screen that says, quote, find the treasure, and then, quote, if you wish to save your mother, use the key. And then the screen goes completely black.
This is how you kidnap me. That, or a van that says free food, tacos, and free books. That's how you kidnap me. I'm just saying.
So obviously, Alyssa is very bewildered by this, but she can't really deal with it because Taylor walks in the door.
Oh, God.
She informs Alyssa that she and Jeb will be together in London, and she makes a point to say, without you. Basically just like egging her on, bullying her. Taylor ends up leaving in a hurry, and she leaves behind her purse. And Alyssa sees that there is a lot of cash in that purse. And she gets the idea that she can, quote, borrow this money and go to London to find the rabbit hole to save her mother.
Which, I don't agree with stealing someone's money out of their purse.
She borrowed it.
Okay. But I feel like the karma that was bestowed upon Miss Taylor.
Exactly. Taylor's kind of just bullied her entire life, just for no reason.
For no real reason.
It's just one of those mean girls with no real motive.
I think they said, like, maybe they used to be friends or they got along once. And then it was like one really stupid, like, young preschool or not school, but like young grade school. She just suddenly became like a bitch. Like, I don't have another word. Like,
yeah.
But that's a lot. That is a common trope in YA books where the bully or the aggressor is someone that, especially when it's a female heroine, it's someone that like they used to be friends with or they used to never have a problem with.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and in a lot of YA, the bully is never really explained either. Like, most of the time, I feel like in adult books, if someone's being a, quote, mean person, they have a backstory to explain why they're being mean.
Right.
Taylor really doesn't. She's just kind of the typical mean girl.
Yeah, you know, I didn't even think about that, but you're very right. It's just like she was written as a mean girl, and that's just it. Like, point. Period.
Moving on to another part, we're jumping back in time a little bit. Alyssa is remembering some stuff that Allison had told her when she was younger. And Allison always said that the daisies hid the treasure. No one ever knew what that meant. But as Alyssa is walking in the door, she looks at the recliner in the living room where Allison had sewn daisies, like applique daisies to it. And she gets the idea, what if something's hidden in the recliner? So before her dad gets home, she decides to cut open the recliner.
Do it.
She undoes all of the daisies and she finds a key with the quote. Well, it makes her remember the quote, "If you wish to save your mother, use the key." And there are other things in there too. An antique bobby pin, a feather quill, a Victorian fan, a copy of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and a few photos. And then Alyssa has a vision. There's a little girl and a boy, and they're in Wonderland. He is quizzing her about the Red Queen, but the little girl doesn't know the answer. But Alyssa, in her present self, answers correctly. And then she realizes this is a memory, not a vision. She's interrupted in this vision by Jeb ringing the doorbell, and he is dressed to go to prom with Taylor. But he had stopped by to ask Alyssa to be nicer to Taylor. Because apparently Taylor had left the store and gone and complained to Jeb that Alyssa was being mean.
As Justin Timberlake once said, cry me a river.
They start to argue. Eventually Jeb gets Alyssa to sit on the couch and she kind of just cries out all of her feelings. And then Alyssa spots a moth. And she remembers that she has seen this moth before from her childhood. But how can a moth live that long? That's the first thought. Like, a moth only lives like for a couple of weeks, not decades. Then Taylor calls Jeb on his phone and her thoughts are interrupted again. Alyssa basically kicks Jeb out of the house and tells him to stay out of her life. A storm brews. Yeah. A storm's brewing outside and it cuts out the electricity. And at the same time, one of Alyssa's bug portraits comes to life and a mirror shatters. She then remembers what Allison said about broken glass. It would sever her identity. When she looks in the mirror, she then sees the boy from her vision, except he's all grown up. He talks to her, tells her to use the key to find him, and to, quote, fix Alice's mistake. She then feels him touch her, even though when she looks around the room, he isn't there. She then reaches out to touch the broken glass, and instead of it feeling like glass, it feels malleable, like she can move it and manipulate it. And instead of a crack, it's a keyhole. In her mind, she envisions the sundial, and that's where she wants to go, is to find the sundial and the park from the photo that she got out of the recliner. And she then inserts the key into the mirror, and she goes through it. She walks through the mirror.
I want to walk through a mirror. No, I don't.
I know.
Yes, I do. No, I do. I do.
But I want to know what's on the other side of my mirror.
I don't want to know.
Well, Alyssa emerges on the other side at the sundial that she had pictured. There's a little puzzle of the sundial she kind of has to solve, but once she does that, a hole emerges. An endless hole. A very long hole that she can't see the bottom of.
The rabbit hole.
She throws... I assume. She throws her flashlight in first, and she notices that it kind of floats down instead of falling down.
Which I love that, because if you remember, especially from the cartoon, like Disney's Alice in Wonderland movie, that is kind of how she hits a certain point. She starts kind of like floating, like her dress even like does a poof.
Yeah.
Like an upside down teacup, and she starts kind of floating down. So I loved the very close and what we know Alice to be similarities in the book. Like, to me, this makes it a true retelling.
Before she can go into the hole, she hears someone shout, "Al!" really loudly, like Al is her nickname. And then Jeb pops up, and she's like, how the heck is Jeb here?
Right. And
this all kind of happens, like, as she's, like, getting into the hole, so it all kind of happens at one time. So as they're, like, floating down the hole, she explains that this is Wonderland, and they are in the rabbit hole. Everything about the story is true. Jeb's just kind of like, he doesn't really know how to respond.
I don't know if I would either, even though I feel like I believe in like all kinds of weird otherworldly like possibilities and things, but I still think I'd be like, did you hit your head?
When like he's even experiencing it and he just can't trust what's going on.
But that's I think there's a lot of people like that you could physically have a green trash can in front of them and be like, it's green, and they would look at you and look at it and be like, but is it? You know, like there's just those people in the world that they need more than just like the visual, or like they're experiencing it and they still have questions.
Yeah. And that's exactly what's happening here. They finish falling. They find the drink and the cake that change their sizes. After they explore the room, Jeb and Alyssa uncover a corridor, and they find the white rabbit, but it really isn't a white rabbit. It is skinless, nothing but bones, and it has horns. His name is actually Rabid White of the Red Court.
Which name I love. Description, kind of icky.
Yeah. He scampers away. He accuses Alyssa of being a thief because she is wearing Alice's gloves.
Yep.
Alyssa runs after him, and Jeb attempts to follow. And she drinks the shrinking liquid and like kind of throws the vial back toward Jeb so he can have a sip. Mm-hmm. And she inserts the key into the door at the end of that long corridor, and she enters Wonderland. Mm-hmm. She and Jeb emerge as tiny little bugs. The flowers are super tall. They tower over them. And the flowers attack them. Which
they did. They did attack Alice after they realized that she was not one of them.
They accused her of, like, being an intruder, basically. And they were super vicious. Like, they started to have, like, teeth in their petals. And they used their thorns. Like, they got all kind of cut up. But they stop attacking once they realize Alyssa is wearing the white gloves. And they kind of hold Jeb hostage. And they instruct Alyssa to dry up the ocean of tears that Alice caused. They can't roam the land like they used to, and they're separated from the other flowers. Jeb eventually frees himself, and he takes a bite of the cake. He returns to normal human size, and he rescues Alyssa. They find a rowboat. Alyssa eats the cake, and she also returns to normal size. On this boat ride in the ocean, Alyssa tells Jeb absolutely everything. She goes through her belongings again, finds a report about Alice. Alice herself had been administered shock treatments, and when she got old, she died from those shock treatments. She had been
horrible.
She had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and psychosis.
God.
Yes, I can't imagine. That part hit me kind of hard.
Yeah, I understand. If you're looking at it from the viewpoint of a reader current day, you're like, Alice in Wonderland was just a story. But imagine Alice as the character, right? She comes back. Or like Dorothy is another prime example. She comes back and she tells the people what she went through. Could you imagine the time period in which both of those characters lived, how they would have been treated? This is a prime example of how they would have been treated. Exactly. And it's just so scary to think because there were young women that this actually did happen to. And I think that's what hurts.
Well, and on this boat ride, Jeb and Alyssa kind of have their first, I'll say, tension between them in like a romantic sense.
The will they, won't they begin.
Yeah,
or that's begins, rather.
That's when it starts for them. Mm-hmm. They both fall asleep in the boat. They're there for over a day, and they are awakened by a creature. It looks like a walrus and an octopus smashed together, and it talks. It is called the Octobenus. That's how I assume it is pronounced.
I believe that is correct.
The creature wants Alyssa as a hostage to get a flute. It goes on this really long monologue. It was kind of confusing. It just kind of rambles on. Just imagine a walrus with like 8 legs talking to you.
If I remember correctly, a similar incident happened to Alice in the original Alice in Wonderland, where she lands and she kind of walks away, and I think it may even pop up in the Disney movie where like he's still like rambling on and Alice walks away. So I think that's pretty accurate. Just this version is a little more grotesque. Yeah. In my mind, like it just seemed like ooh.
Well, they start to fight the Octobenus. Alyssa eventually makes a deal with it, saying she can quench his appetite if it lets her and Jeb go. The Octobenus is like super duper hungry. She tricks the creature into feeding the last bit of cake that it has to the clams in the ocean.
Yes.
Jeb and Alyssa get out of the boat. They start to swim, but Alyssa is being dragged down by something. She can't break the surface of the water. Turns out she has a sponge in her pocket that was hidden in the recliner, and the sponge was soaking up the ocean. She eventually gets the sponge out of her pocket. They make it to the surface. The sponge has soaked everything up, and they defeated the Octobenus. The clams are very grateful because obviously they're not getting eaten by this creature, and they come together and form steps for Alyssa and Jeb to take once they get to this island that they're going to. So I pictured this because I've been playing Hogwarts Legacy for a little bit since it came out. There's some parts in Hogwarts Legacy where you do a spell and like these skeleton bones kind of all float in the air and they come together and form stairs. That's how I imagine the clams come together.
Okay.
After that, Jeb kind of makes a remark that Alyssa is like glistening and glowing, but she kind of brushes it off, saying it's just like salt residue from the ocean. Like she's fine. Alyssa takes a look around this island and she realizes that she's been here before. The landscape is an exact replica of one of her moth art pieces. She also remembers that since she has a unique birthmark, if she uses that birthmark on the tree trunk, it will expose the heart of Wonderland. So she presses her ankle to the tree trunk, and it rolls open to expose a doorway with stairs spiraling down, and the stairs are made of bones. I'm sorry, if I see stairs made of bones, I'm not going up down those stairs.
I will. Yeah, I need to know.
Once they reach the bottom of the stairs, they are surrounded by sprites. They are no bigger than grasshoppers. They are the color of lima beans, and they have scales on their bodies with wings to fly. The leader is Gossamer and says she will take them to who they seek. They then enter the caterpillar's lair. Alyssa hears Gossamer and the caterpillar speak to each other before she sees him. She describes his voice as liquid, masculine, and sensual with a deep accent, which I assume to be British. It's never explicitly said.
I also assume it's one of those voices, and some women will know what I'm talking about, but I'm assuming it's one of those voices that, like, the minute you hear it, it doesn't matter what the person looks like, but the minute you hear it, you get this, like, little knot between your stomach and your nether regions, and you're like, oh! I imagine it's one of those type of voices.
Two of the voices that I have that reaction to, one is my boy Benedict Cumberbatch.
I love Benny.
And the other one, I'm not really like attracted to him as a person, but he just has a good voice, is Tom Hiddleston.
He has an excellent voice, and he has moments where I find him attractive, but normally not all the ways. No.
Yeah. So that's the kind of voice I'm like visualizing here.
Yeah. There's a TikToker that does like he pretends to be different like book characters because he actually looks like he could be, say, from like Court of Thorne and Roses. And he has one of those voices that you're like, oh, excuse me, sir. And I just picture the caterpillar as one of those like voices where it doesn't matter what he even looks like before you even see him. That voice, you're like, I need to know more.
So Alyssa continues deeper into the lair. She realizes that the caterpillar, the moth, and the man from the mirror are all the same person. It's the boy from her childhood, except all grown up. He is wearing a black leather suit, utilitarian boots, and he's holding a hookah hose between two fingers.
Okay, I have a question real quick.
Okay.
What is it with a lot of authors when you, especially fantasy YA authors, when they meet the man, the boy, the dude, there's always a boy, right? Why are they like clad in leather bound?
I don't know.
Because I'm not feeling it.
I'm not either. I don't see the appeal. That's not like, my thing.
Because
when I think of wearing leather, I'm just like, I would sweat so much.
That's what I'm like. He squeaks when he walks across the room. You know, like leather jacket, cool. But like, I know it's not pertinent to what you're explaining right now, but I just had to interject and ask because I'm wondering, like, is it just me that every time you read, and it's in a lot of YA fantasy, and I love fantasy, and I read a lot of YA fantasy, and I'm always like, why are they draped from head to toe leather? Is it because it's body hugging? Maybe?
I don't know. I cannot explain it.
Dear authors, fantasy YA authors, please stop putting all men in leather, because all I can visualize when they're coming across the room at the heroine, which you're supposed to visualize as yourself, I just imagine them squeaking and making a lot of noise. And then, like, if there is a quote unquote, like, pretend this is happening, I'm imagining they're sweaty, and sweaty leads to stink, and I'm not here for that.
It's like Ross from Friends. Had the baby powder.
You'd have to. The chafing.
Anyways, let me continue with my description.
Go ahead.
He also has shoulder-length blue hair, and he's wearing a red satin half mask.
Also, why are they always got hair to their shoulders?
I don't
I
know.
don't know that either. Okay, continue. Sorry.
That makes me want to give him a haircut.
Right? like everybody running around here like Loki, leather and long hair. Like, what is... God, I can't.
Maybe it is Tom Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston for every character.
Okay, she remembers his name. His name is Morpheus. Morpheus tells her that he has had contact with all of her relatives, but she has been the most receptive to Wonderland's pool. Allison tried to stop it by acting crazy, but Alyssa sought Morpheus out anyway at a young age. Alyssa feels instantly guilty, and once Jeb realizes what's happening, he starts to attack Morpheus, but Jeb then gets knocked unconscious.
You think it's a cooler name? Morpheus? Jebediah?
Yeah. The sprites take Jeb back to Morpheus's manor to recover, and Alyssa and Morpheus follow on foot. And of course, they're going to talk while they walk.
Oh,
yeah. Alyssa remembers a memory from childhood, except she realizes that she has remembered it wrong. When her mother had cut her with scissors in the garden, Alyssa had been trying to save Morpheus, and then he left her and she felt abandoned. They get back to the manor, and they get back to the manor. She's very tired, and she wakes up in Morpheus's bedroom. Stop making me laugh.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying, like...
Well, she wakes up not only in Morpheus's bedroom, but in different clothes. So that gave me the ick. That gave me straight ick.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah. Alyssa tells Morpheus about her recurring nightmare about being Alice. Morpheus asks Alyssa to drink some tea, and that tea makes her hallucinate / unlock her magic. She sees a courtroom with Alice on trial. In the middle of the trial, Rabid White, who is also in chains, tries to steal Alice away. The judge is a stork and kind of follows them, and they fight. Alice escapes and goes looking for Morpheus, but he was in the middle of his metamorphosis, like he was in a cocoon, basically. And he would be in that cocoon for 75 years. Thus, the lineage curse was born. In order to break the curse, Alyssa has to right all of Alice's wrongs, drain the ocean, which she's done, return the gloves and fan to the Duchess, make peace with the clams, which she has done, make peace with Tea Party guests, and ultimately break Queen Red's magic bonds. To do that, they kind of go into a little bit of detail here. The Cheshire Cat, his nickname is Chessie, was cleaved in two by the Red Queen with the Corporal Sword. She fed his...
Vorpal Sword?
Vorpal Sword, sorry.
Sorry.
Wrong. It's Vorpal Sword.
I love the Vorpal Sword.
The Queen fed Chessie's body to the Bandersnatch, which is a terrifying creature with dragon talons and a spiked tail.
He's a fantastic creature if you've never looked him up. Just go Google Bandersnatch. It's fantastic.
His head was spared. Alice hid the Vorpal Sword with the Tea Party guests, namely the Mad Hatter, or his real name, Herman Hattington. Alice left them under a sleeping spell. If Alyssa wakes them, there's another part of the curse broken. A lot happened in that chapter. It was very busy.
Yeah.
Which I will say, y'all know I like to skim read. You cannot skim read this book.
No.
Believe me, I tried. Can't do it. You'll get lost. You need to read every single word.
Mm-hmm.
Jeb and Alyssa are eventually reunited, and they're dressed up for a banquet. Jeb once again notices that Alyssa is changing. She's actually starting to have some facial markings, which are the same ones that Morpheus does, and her skin is glowing even brighter. They notice that there are also slits cut into her clothes, so they think, will she get wings next? They discuss different options about what to do, and they're kind of interrupted by Morpheus, like just as they're about to like hardcore make out while they were talking. There's a lot of tension there on the stairs. And he brings out a Jabberlock box. It's basically a box, and the top of the box you can kind of, it's like a window pane, and you can kind of see inside the box. And when she looks inside, she sees a floating head in dark liquid. It looks kind of like it's pickled, and it's the Ivory Queen. Alyssa remarks that it's the most beautiful woman she's ever seen, but when Ivory tries to say something, nothing comes out. It's just her mouth moving. Morpheus explains that it's a prison where the prisoner can be seen but not heard. Their jabbers are locked away. It is clear from the way Morpheus holds the box that he cares for Ivory. Alyssa adds freeing Ivory to her to-do list, and then they head to the banquet. This banquet is called the Feast of Beasts, and every kind of creature imaginable is there, and they all know who Alyssa is. This banquet is kind of odd in that in order to eat, they have to kill their food, and there's like duck-like creatures just released, and they all chase down these ducks with big old mallets, and they basically whop them to death and they eat them. Very Wonderland.
Very Wonderland. I'd also, for some reason, I don't know if you remember this or if you ever, I don't remember where Kroger's were for everyone, but like I grew up with a grocery store called Kroger. I'd say kind of like on the same scale as Publix, right? And they used to have these tanks when I was a kid that you'd walk in and there's these lobsters in them. And you literally look at the guy and you go, I want that one.
We had that. It's not Kroger's, but I remember doing that.
Yeah, you'd like walk in and you would basically like be like, I want that one. And then you'd take it home and kill it and eat it.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same premise, except you wouldn't do it with a mallet.
I'm going to get some crap for that. But like, I grew up on a farm too. So like, yeah. But for some reason, this banquet made me think of the lobsters in the tank. I don't know why.
So while all of the guests are busy malleting their ducks to death, Alyssa befriends a ferret-looking creature, and it licks her chin. Where it licked her, that sensation travels all over her body, filling her with unrelenting sadness. Morpheus tells her to just let her tears out, and instead of tears, she cries out a glass marble. It's a wish, a gift from the ferret to Alyssa. They only give them out once in their lifetime. In the meantime, Morpheus trades the gloves and the fan for a key to awaken the tea party guest, Black Pepper. So in order to wake up the guests at the tea party that Alice left slumbering, she has to use Black Pepper.
I think they do that to the dormouse at one point. Because, the dormouse is always falling asleep at the tea party.
Yeah.
So I think that's where that comes from. I think, if I remember correctly, the Black Pepper is nod to, like, trying to make sure the dormouse was awake.
Yeah. This banquet is then interrupted by Rabid White and the card guards. Because, in Wonderland, the soldiers are made out of playing cards. He is summoning Alyssa to the Red Court. Morpheus refuses to let her go, and so they fight the card army. Jeb grabs Alyssa, and they leave. They kind of hide from the fight, and where they were hiding, Alyssa and Jeb see the Jabberlock box again. She rereads the inscription on it, and she discovers there is another way to open the box. Someone has to be willing to trade places. Gossamer then leads them to another mirror portal, and it will take them straight to the tea party. They take their first steps / tumbles onto a table filled with every kind of dessert imaginable, and at the other end of the table sit Herman Haddington, March Hairless, and Dormouse, all frozen solid in gray ice. Haddington has a called a conformature attached to his skull. And we'll talk about that in a second. March Hairless looks like a skinned rabbit, and the mouse looks almost normal. He's just wearing a doorman's jacket. When Alyssa first stumbled onto the table, she landed face first in some type of berry pie. And she was in the process of cleaning herself up when she noticed how absolutely ravenous she was. It was an overwhelming feeling of hunger that she had never experienced before. And then she imagined how it must have looked to see her tumble face first into a pie, and she started giggling uncontrollably. That I can relate to, because I will laugh at the most stupid things and people look at me like I'm dumb. So I related very heavily to that part.
You don't necessarily laugh at the most stupid things, but what I love about you is, like, if you're uncomfortable or like you don't know what to do, Bianca just laughs. I love that. Like, it's one of my favorite things. But yeah, I don't think you laugh at stupid things. I think you're one of those people that you laugh when you genuinely find something funny. But you also are one of those people that, like, when you're in a situation you don't know what to do, you laugh. Like,
maybe I am a little mad.
we're all mad. Yeah.
She absolutely loses control of herself, and she starts dancing on the table with Jeb, and it's like very seductive dancing. However, the mouse is starting to wake up. So Jeb uses the pepper on the mouse to wake him up fully. And Alyssa, in a brief few moments of clarity, realizes that to wake the rest of them, she needs to get the Hatter's pocket watch and dry it off. So Alyssa takes the watch, sets it to a certain time, basically 1 minute after they were frozen, and then chases the mouse. Like, she plans to eat the mouse. It's like she's been possessed. The Hatter interrupts her mouse meal by stating that she has to eat the whole berry and not just the juice in order to satiate the hunger. So Jeb then pops several berries into her mouth, and the hunger finally abates.
To me, it's kind of like when a vampire first changes and they're, like, super hungry, but they don't quite know what or why or how to get, like, that taken care of. That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah. Like, she had no control over any of her actions.
Yeah, no control, and also didn't understand what to do or why she was feeling that way.
Yeah. But since everyone's awake now, Jeb and Alyssa ask the Hatter where the Vorpal sword is. He claims to not know. And then, of course, Morpheus appears. He always seems to appear at, like, the most convenient times for himself. Morpheus then explains that he was misinformed and that the Vorpal sword is actually at the Red Castle guarded by the Bandersnatch. And that during the battle he just had, the Ivory Queen had been stolen, so Alyssa can't get home through the Ivory portal anymore. Now they have to get the sword and the Queen to open the portal and get home. Morpheus's plan is for them to find Chessie, since he can subdue the Bandersnatch with his other half. Morpheus will steal the sword and defeat Queen Grenadine and send them home. Alyssa and Jeb are the only ones who can go because the Twid sisters, who are the guardians of the cemetery, have a little squabble with Morpheus about Morpheus's moths, and that was a whole other side story that I'm not going to get into.
They're basically supposed to be like Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And since Chessie is technically partly dead, he has taken up residence at the cemetery as well. Morpheus gives Alyssa a flute, and since he is Morpheus, he tucks that flute between her boobs when Jeb isn't looking. It was all very seductive. And then getting to the cemetery is going to be a whole other adventure, because there's a desert and a chasm that has to be crossed. They decide to sand surf, basically.
Okay.
They figure that since Jeb and Alyssa can skateboard, surfing can't be much different, so that's their best option.
I mean, they're not wrong. Most people that can skateboard can also surf and snowboard and all of those things.
Yeah.
Usually.
I cannot do any of those, so all the power to them.
I can't do them even remotely well, but I have tried all of the above.
As they're crossing this desert chasm thing, they have to fight some juju birds, and they end up falling into that chasm. But at the instance that they fall into the chasm, Alyssa sprouts wings. Blah, 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 blah. However, she's not strong enough to get them out, so before they crash to the bottom, Alyssa just kind of slowly lowers them down like a parachute.
I mean, I'd imagine you wouldn't be strong enough to use them like immediately. It's not like it's like when a horse is born, baby foals don't like. Yes, they walk immediately, but even then, they're like, "Whoa, what am I doing on these things?"
Yeah.
I could imagine she'd perfectly know how to use them the minute she gets them. I mean, come on.
Well, and they have to devise a new plan. So the new plan is to basically leave Jeb in the chasm, and Alyssa's like, "I'll come back for you." So she flies herself out, but she kind of crash lands because she doesn't know how to use her wings yet.
Right.
And she feels herself being carted off and like dragged somewhere. So she finally figures out from like listening to the people that are dragging her that she is being taken to the twin sisters at the cemetery. They're like tiny pixie creatures that have kidnapped her. And she bribes them with her shiny belt because they like shiny things. They like treasure.
Pixies usually do. I mean, there's a lot of, even in like Peter Pan, like they're attracted to shiny things,
Yeah. So they start making their way across the cemetery and they come across a huge spider web. And that's when the pixies are like, "Nah, you're on your own, bye." And they kind of abandon her. And that's when she realizes she has entered Sister One's web. She makes an appearance. She's a very pale woman with almost translucent skin, but instead of legs, she has spider legs. Alyssa then dances with Sister One. That was very weird. And Sister One sings to her flowers, the souls that she's in charge of, and lulls them back to sleep. Alyssa then is like, "I'm out of here," and she goes through an archway and completely forgets to rescue Chessie during all of that. She's just like, "Nah, I'm getting out of here. This is creepy."
Peace.
She unknowingly has stumbled into Sister Two's lair. There are toys and various things hanging from trees, and the silence that ensues is almost deafening. She touches one doll that is very similar to one she has as a child, and the doll's eyes open.
No.
I didn't like that part. Sister 2 then comes around the corner, and she has basically the same body as her sister, except instead of hands, she has gardening shears like Edward Scissorhands.
Which is kind of funny. Digging it.
And she also has scars all over her face like Edward.
Well, she probably didn't know how to use her scissor hands initially. Yes. And yeah.
Sister 2 is not as nice as Sister 1 and basically comes out swinging and accuses Alyssa of stealing Chessie's smile, like Chessie's head, basically.
Yeah.
They fight. Sister 1 then comes and breaks it up, saying she's the one who stole Chessie, not Alyssa. She had made a deal with Morpheus that if they gave up Chessie, he would relinquish his moths. Sister 1, after breaking up the fight, then invites Alyssa back to her house for tea. Humphrey, a.k.a. Humpty Dumpty, is there, waiting for his tea as well. Sister 1 tells Alyssa about how Alice had been kept in a bird cage by a dodo bird in Wonderland for decades. But if that were true, how would Alyssa be alive? Evidently, Alice had gone back to the real world and had a family. She was just misinformed. Alyssa then sees a chessboard whose colors are red and silver instead of the standard black and white. On all of the squares are her accomplishments she has made in Wonderland. And there's only one square left. Harness the smile, meaning get Chessie's head.
Right.
These are the rules that someone has to accomplish in order to become queen. And then Morpheus's lullaby comes back to her from her childhood. And I marked my page here. Let me pull this up, because I didn't type it out. So the lullaby is, "Little blossom in white and red, resting now your tiny head. Grow and thrive, be strong and king, for you will one day be their queen. Little Blossom and Peach and Gray grew up strong and found your way. 2 things more yet to be seen until at last you'll be their queen. So Alyssa basically realizes that Morpheus has been grooming her to become Queen of Wonderland since she was a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
Alyssa demands to see Jeb. A lot of stuff happens. They kind of fight again. Someone hands Alyssa a teddy bear, and she has no doubt that it contains Chessie's head. So once she opens the teddy bear, basically slashes it open, Chessie's head will appear. Like, she intuitively knows that. Sister One then opens a portal to the Red Castle, and Alyssa is forced through that opening. Morpheus then confirms when she gets through that portal that it wasn't Alice who returned to the mortal realm all those years ago. It was actually Queen Red. Alyssa is of royal lineage in Wonderland. Red had escaped as a child and somehow came back as an old woman. Alice had spent her entire life in a cage. They somehow swapped places back, and when Alice was returned to the mortal realm, she was put in an asylum because nobody believed her or her stories. Which, I don't blame them. I wouldn't believe her either.
I don't either, but then that makes you like, that's so sad because she basically was kept in a cage in Wonderland, in this like magical, crazy place. To come home, which is probably all she wanted after a certain time, right? I'm sure initially going to Wonderland was fantastic, but then you're thrown in a cage, it kind of sucks. And then to go home to basically be thrown in a different kind of cage.
Yep. So she was basically
horrible.
just a caged animal her entire life.
Yeah. Ugh.
Morpheus explains that he had tried to rescue Alice and put her back where she belonged. However, Red had turned on him at the last second. They had fought and she was injured. She used something called Death Speak on Morpheus to force him to make sure her family line would one day rule Wonderland again. They go on to explain that Death Speak is basically your last dying words. You bind someone to do something for you. Mm-hmm. So Morpheus was basically cursed into making sure that the family line would rule Wonderland again.
It's like if deathbed wishes were like carved into your body where you had to 100% follow those. Like you didn't have an option.
Yeah. At this point, Alyssa's going through a lot of emotions, trying to process everything. And Morpheus uses that to his advantage. And they somehow end up in an embrace and start kissing. Alyssa then kind of comes to her senses, realizes that they still need to rescue Jeb. And they stop kissing, and they kind of talk a little bit more. The only way to free Morpheus, the Ivory Queen, and get home is to be crowned queen. She still needs to get the Vorpal sword from the Bandersnatch. Morpheus then shows Alyssa a mirror, and in the reflection, Alyssa sees Jeb behind prison bars. He's the size of a sparrow, and he's all beaten up and bloody. Morpheus threatens to feed Jeb to Grenadine's cat Dinah if she doesn't do as she's told. Basically blackmailing her.
Mm-hmm.
They get Alyssa changed. She is decked out in all red and a big poofy ball gown covered in rubies and scarlet jewels. Both the red and ivory courts are in attendance for her soon coronation. She just has to pass the final test. Use the smile and beat the Bandersnatch. This is, I like to call the boss fight. There's a really big fight. Morpheus cuts off one of the Bandersnatch's heads. And then Alyssa frees Chessie's body. The head and body are reunited. And Chessie is like, yeah, okay, I'm out of here. Bye. Y'all have fun.
Bye. Peace.
Morpheus then gives Alyssa her wish from the ferret, but tells her not to use it until after she is crowned, so that he can be free of his curse. Morpheus then crowns her in private with the ruby crown, but before the crown even has time to warm on her head, a bunch of people march in. The Ivory Queen is somehow out of her box and accuses Morpheus of seducing her. However, she is out because Jeb has taken her place in the box. So obviously that sends Alyssa into a tizzy. And she uses that wish to basically wish that she had never come to Wonderland. Time is basically reversed. She goes back home and kind of picks up where she left off. Except, like, left off as in it's right before she enters Wonderland, before she stuck her key in the hole. Jeb and Taylor had evidently broken up on her front porch. And she and Jeb kind of get together. And they kind of live happily ever after. Alyssa also goes to talk to Allison, tell her that the curse is broken and that she plans on getting Allison out. And that's basically the end of book 1.
Yeah. It is a series. I can't remember how many are in the series. Is it 4?
I think the original was 3, and then she wrote a 4th, and I have not read the 4th one.
No, and I actually have read 1 and 2 and I did finish 3, but I have like no memory of 3, if that makes sense.
I have no memory of 2 or 3. So
there's also a prequel book that I did not know existed until recently called Alice the Absent.
Yeah.
Which is about Alice's mysterious absence. And it's more about like Morpheus on the day of his like awakening, when he like has that new identity and realizes what's happened. So it looks like it is books. There's 1, 2, and 3, which are Splintered, Unhinged, and Ensnared. There is 1.5, The Moth in the Mirror, which is a Morpheus tale. And then it looks like you can get, there's a book 3.5.
Yeah, that's 3.5 is Untamed.
No, 3 is, 3. Well, it's actually Ensnared. Or excuse me, 6 Impossible Things. But Untamed is 6 Impossible Things and Moth in the Mirror in one book.
Yeah.
So I guess technically that means there are 3 books with 3 novellas, it looks like. 0.5, 1.5, and 3.5.
And A.G. Howard writes other retellings as well. She has one called Roseblood that is a retelling of Phantom of the Opera. Mm-hmm. And what's the other one?
I have not read that one, but I really wanted to.
Stain was the other one.
Yeah. She has other retellings as well, I believe.
Stain is a retelling of The Princess and the Pea. Mm-hmm. So she is a good reteller. If you want to check out her other books and or pick this one up and finish the series, I highly recommend it. She
does a lot of fantasy. As we mentioned, if you're not a YA fan, she also does what they call like new adult and just like adult. So I recommend her. And if I'm not mistaken, a lot of times the Splintered series tends to be free if you have Kindle Unlimited. And I'll say it again, anytime I mention Kindle Unlimited, I'd like to remind you, if you purchase a book via Kindle Unlimited and you read it, make sure you go to the very last page, like go through all the pages, because I found out from an author friend that they don't get credit unless you complete the book. So like if you're downloading all these books on KU, but you're not ever like completing them to the end, even if you like DNF it, like it's not for you, please like zap all the way to the end and at least give that author credit for your purchase of KU. So.
Well, what did you read, Miranda?
So I read another retelling, which I would think is not, like your retelling was really good in the sense that it is like hardcore, a lot of the names, a lot of the things like the Pepper to the Dormouse, the cat named Dinah, like huge similarities. I'd call it a true retelling, right?
Yeah.
Mine is loosely a retelling. It doesn't have as much to do with Alice in Wonderland as it does like some scattered references. It's kind of its own unique story, but I can understand and appreciate all the nods to Alice in Wonderland. This is by an author that is usually coined as a Bianca Nono author. Her name is Gena Showalter. She's very big in the romance community. And this series is called Alice in Zombieland. And book number 1 is actually, I think, by the same name. It's the White Rabbit Chronicles. Excuse me. Book number 1 is Alice in Zombieland. I am going to go less spoilery than you did, only because I think you would really enjoy these books. They are young adult. Some people class them as kind of add them to the horror young adult. I don't really think so. And maybe they do that because it is involving like a version of zombies. But so I'm going to take like an approach where I'm not going to get too terribly spoilery. Because I want you to possibly still read them. I know you were interested at one point, so. Yeah. Oh, I thought I lost you.
Nope, I'm here.
Okay. So yeah. So I'm going to take a different approach. And I made a mistake of reading a couple of people's reviews on Goodreads, and I shouldn't have, because there are some people. Oh, excuse me. There are some people that I think don't, like we talked about at the top of the show, they don't look at like what it's about or what genre it falls under. Because one I read was like 1 star, and basically she was like boring, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you didn't know this was a YA, did you? Like, I think that's what it boiled down to, is that she's not a YA reader. This story, or this retelling, if you will, follows Alice Bell. She is a teenager, but she doesn't live a typical life. She's kind of an ordinary girl, other than the fact that she's not allowed outside after dark. Neither is her sister. It's kind of courtesy of and a paranoia of her father. So, like, if they participate in any after-school activities, it has to be something where the meeting or the event or whatever is like, if it's after dark, you're not allowed. Like, it has to be like immediately after school or something of that nature. And it kind of even, the book opens up with her little sister begging her, you know, hey, it's your birthday, so if you ask Mom if I can participate in my recital, and you tell her you'd really like to watch my recital, maybe she can allow Dad to make this happen. Because he's super paranoid. He sees monsters everywhere. So it even describes like their house and how it's set up and the kind of precautions that he has taken for this to take place. And unfortunately, again, it's kind of like Alyssa's mother in the book that you just went through. You're like, what is wrong with this guy? Like, so there's some like borderline mental health issues. Like, her mother even kind of goes and it's like, you know how your dad is? Like, kind of like she's also tired of this. Or not of it, but like tired. What do you do? How do you help your spouse, especially when no one is believing him? And it turns out that she does convince them to finally be out after dark, the entire family. There ends up being a terrible car accident, which kills everyone but Alice. And so she's now living with her grandparents, and she's having to start at a new school. But on top of that, she begins to see the monsters that her father always described and said that he could see. So this is where the zombies come in. Basically, they're like a form of undead. So she, living with her grandparents, she ends up changing her name. She goes from Alice to Allie. That's due to like memories, and she's dealing with survivor's guilt because she convinced her family for the first time ever to go out as a family to enjoy this thing after dark, which is her father never allowed it because he knew what was out there, basically. So she's dealing with some grief and some survivor's guilt, and now she can also see these monsters as well. So she's trying to like remove herself from that, because now being followed around by her father's demons, they're like, okay, so they are zombies, but they describe them as kind of like these slobbering, decaying, dead things, but also ghost-like.
Wait, so they're not like a rabid
no,
brain
not exact
zombie thing?
No, they even move a little different. There's a lot of similarities to what you would think of as when someone says zombie, but they're a little bit different as well. And they're smarter also. Like they have more ability to know what's like kind of going on. So now that she's living with her grandparents, there's kind of like, she describes them a lot as like being out of touch. And so there's like real tension between her and her new social group, because she's kind of gotten in with what everyone describes as like the rough crowd. And this is where, as always, you know, it's a YA, you're going to have a love interest. So their leader, Cole Holland, we have the obligatory love triangle, which never really threatens the main love storyline, but it kind of threatens other parts of the story, if that makes sense. She has a new quirky best friend, which is interesting because, as I said, when the book opens up, like, she was basically a keep your head down, go to school, come home, you're not allowed out after dark kind of person. So now she actually has, I think, on top of survivor guilt and memories and grief, she's also like adjusting to a new lifestyle that she was never allowed to have. There is an Alice in Wonderland motif kind of established, and there's also kind of like a survival horror game kind of staples, such as there's things gradually revealed through a journal written in code. I think Gena Showalter, honestly, is very good with like this original zombie mythology that she creates for this book.
Listen, I was going to ask, since you said she's originally a romance author, how do you think she did with this in this genre?
Well, I think she's fantastic. So if you've never read, I know you haven't. So Gena Showalter, yes, that she normally is in the romance genre, but she is one of those that would fall under things I would read. So a lot of heavy, like, paranormal romance. I think her main one, and let me Google that before I tell you. If I'm not mistaken, her main big one that everyone is going to know her for is, and I'm sure because of how many years like you've worked in libraries and stuff, probably will also have heard of it. Give me just a second. It's trying to find the name of it, but it's a werewolf series, a shifter series.
Oh, okay.
Is what she's known most for.
The Darkest Night?
Yes, I think. Yeah. And the woman has written a lot.
She's like Hamilton. She never stops.
Yeah, they don't stop. Like, I think they write books in their sleep. She also has a YA series that I'd like to check out that's like alien based.
Oh, so she just likes all
she
of
thought
the...
I said hate. She does. So as far as her writing zombies, I think she was kind of meant for it because she does aliens, she does ghosts. She has another series I've never read, but I'd love to. It's kind of like, it looks like she's kind of broaching cozy mystery paranormal vibes in a new series that she has, and she's co-writing it with someone else. But as far as you asking, like, how do I feel like she did? I think she did great, but I think that's her forte. I think writing paranormal creatures and horror creatures are what she's good at.
Okay.
So she just did it in like a YA setting, basically.
Yeah.
And it is kind of her own stories. I do agree with a lot of the reviews I read. Now, the first time I read this book or started this series was about, I think, 7 years ago when I read the book the first time. So rereading it, I do agree now, because we talked about this, reading books at different times, you feel different ways. And I read a review that said that they felt like it was sometimes very clunky in the exposition of the book. And I think I do agree with that a little now, though. The climax of the book is a little rushed when you're kind of comparing it to the pacing of the first part of the book. But I don't think that takes away from the story and what actually takes place in the book. I still really enjoyed it. Cole ends up having like a bigger play into things, as I'm sure you could have surmised without like having to read the book. He is basically your moody, brooding, like I guess he'd be a combination of Jebediah and Morpheus, right? Like he's moody and brooding, and her love interest. He's supposed to be like, when she comes along, like he picks fights just to pick fights, I think is how they describe him at one point. Like he gets into fights at school just because he's like, wants to prove that he is tougher than anyone else. The first time, I think it's the first time they lock eyes, they share a weird vision and neither one are sure what the heck that means. Obviously it's foreshadowing to come later. I really enjoyed this book. It's not your typical zombie book, as I've already mentioned. There are certain parts that I think that could be confusing, yet the whole book was still understandable, easy read, and very enjoyable. It is available on Kindle. It is available on audio. And typically if I can get something on audio, sorry, I don't know what's going on. I'm losing my voice.
Get you a swig of water or tea. I don't know what you have on hand.
I got my tea, and it's been sitting for too long, so it has a weird taste. Okay. If you're a tea drinker, you know what I mean. It's got like that when it gets too bitter. Anyway, it's still a very enjoyable book, but as you know, a lot of times I will take the Audible option if it is an option, which is going to lead me into the next topic I want to cover very quickly. But usually I will typically pick Audible. I have to say, I tried the sample that Audible offers you for this book because it was a reread. I thought, I'll just go that route. I don't know why, but I wasn't feeling it. Was not feeling the sample and did not feel like I could listen to the entire book on Audible.
Huh.
So I actually purchased it for like stupid cheap on my Kindle because I have the physical copies all in storage in the US. So I purchased to read this through Kindle, and for like less than $9, I actually got like what they call a boxed collection on Kindle of the entire series to include the novellas. So
yeah.
I enjoyed the reread. I think a lot of you guys will enjoy this, especially if you are a YA reader, especially if you like retellings, even loosely based. There's secrets, there's tension, all of the things. There's, like I said, the brooding male interest. I think, honestly, if I remember correctly, she's even one of those that it kills me. Like, I'm kind of over this trope, but at the same time, I continue to read it. That whole, like, I don't think I'm pretty, and I'm not like other girls.
Yeah.
But she's like a tall, leggy blonde, which, in her defense, sometimes you're born a tall, leggy blonde where you just look like a freaking grasshopper. I would know. I digress. Yeah, but there's some bad boy tropes, romance, it's will they, won't they, love triangle, but it's not your typical. Overall, I still would give this 4 stars because clearly I reread it and still enjoyed it. The first time I read it, apparently I gave it a 5-star review.
Yeah, but how long ago was that?
Like I said, I think that was about 7 years ago. Let me see.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was like 7 years. So 7 years ago, 7-ish years ago, And the only reason I can remember, because my mouse has died and won't let me ask Goodreads. The only reason I remember is because it was actually a series that when I came across it, I got it from the Enterprise Library. They didn't even have all of them yet because I don't think they were all out. But Laramie and I read it together. And I know how long she's been gone.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it was probably about 7 years ago that I read this for the first time. Okay. It did come out. It was published in 2012. So.
Oh, so it's a little bit older like Splintered is.
Mm-hmm, it is. So. But I would highly recommend it. And I did mention earlier that I wanted to give an honorable mention to another favorite retelling author and retelling of Alice, which deals way, way more heavy into mental illness and living in an asylum and people not believing you. So just trigger warning for that. But it's Insanity. It is the Insanity series. Book number 1 is Insanity by Cameron Jace. I found this series because it was before Kindle Unlimited was a thing. So it was published in 2013. So again, kind of same timeline as the 2 books that we currently talked about. Also considered young adult horror retelling, paranormal fairy tale. And I think I found it because Goodreads was like, if you enjoyed this, you will enjoy this. And also the author was in a group. I know there's still a thing, but I'm not active in them, Goodreads groups.
Yeah.
I used to be very involved in a couple of them, and the author himself came in and was like, listen, my book number 1 is free on Kindle right now. And so I was like, sure, free on Kindle. Absolutely. I have now read this book 3 times.
As I've seen this pop up on my Goodreads for the same reasons. It's like, since you read this, you need to read this. And I've just never read it.
So I'll give you guys the quick Goodreads synopsis, and then we will be done with our retellings for today. And thank you, Bianca, for I think you actually recommended. You were like, hey, it's your birth month. What do you want to do? And I was like, Alice. But I appreciate that. And I think it was fantastic that you allowed me to just spend, I think 2 hours basically talking about Alice in all different forms.
You're
could
welcome.
Talk about it forever. So if anyone has any questions or wants to ask me about other retellings, I essentially love a retelling in general for the most part. Alice ones just happen to be my favorite. But if you're interested in my honorable mention, as I said, Cameron Jace's Insanity series, number 1 is Insanity. After accidentally killing everyone in her entire class, Alice Wonder is now a patient in the Radcliffe Lunatic Asylum. No one doubts her insanity. Only a hookah-smoking professor believes otherwise, that he can prove her sanity by decoding Lewis Carroll's paintings, photographs, and find Wonderland's real whereabouts. Professor Caterpillar persuades the asylum that Alice can save lives and catch the Wonderland monsters now reincarnated in modern-day criminals. In order to do so, Alice leads a double life. An Oxford University student by day and a mad girl in an asylum by night. The line between insanity and insanity thins when she meets Jack Diamond, an arrogant college student who believes that nonsense is an actual science.
I just clicked want to read, so if you follow me on Goodreads, you'll see that.
And I think it's pretty far back, but it's in my read. This series, won't lie, has 9 books.
Oh, goodness.
2 novellas that are kind of funny. I don't know much about them, but one is called Happy Halloween Alice Wonder, and the other one's called Black Friday Alice Wonder. Interesting. But yeah, there's 9 books with the 2 novellas.
Which I see Insanity is only 254 pages, so it's not that long.
No, it's not a long book at all. I didn't even know he had written these. But he does, if you are into retellings, Cameron Jace, just like Gena Showalter and A.G. Howard, is another one I would follow. Is a male author. He's fantastic. He knows what he's doing. He is also a big reader, and he loves like out of print books, folk tales, fairy tales, mysterious storytellers. So I think that's what makes him very good at the stories that he tells. So.
Real quick, since it's your birthday month, I know you wanted to talk about your love of audiobooks.
I did.
So go ahead and tell us.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to bring this up is I know this is a hot debate. And I'm not here to have the hot debate. We can do that in my DMs on Instagram. Or you can write like to us on our Together Instagram, and maybe we'll talk about it later in the show. It is a hot debate on are audiobooks considered reading? I am of the camp that it is. And I would like to share some brief snippets from a couple of different articles that back up, especially for someone like me. Obviously, I mention it a lot, sometimes in jest, being funny. But at the end of the day, yes, I actually am clinically diagnosed with ADHD. It's something I did not find out about until I was an adult. And like many of us that don't find out until we were adult, I wish I had known this as a child. It would have made a lot of my struggles much easier. Another example is my son is on the autism spectrum. He too prefers audiobooks. Now, he does read a lot of manga and comic books and graphic novels like in paper form. But if it's a long book, like for example, right now he's working his way through Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, and he loves them, but he's doing them via audio. He did all of the Harry Potters via audio when he was younger, all the Percy Jacksons and so forth. So I am a huge advocate for audiobooks. And I won't lie, when someone used to mention audiobooks to me, I think I've now been a Goodreads member since my son was about 5. So going on 12 years. When someone first mentioned to me, maybe you should consider audiobooks, because I had been in a reading slump for a really long time and I wanted to get back into reading, but I was spending a lot of my time in the school, like making flashcards, printing things off, just doing what I could to be helpful because my son was in school. And then also like I would feel bad that I'd read for 3 hours and didn't do like the laundry or whatever. So a friend suggested audiobooks, and I won't lie, I immediately thought, well, that's for old people. Like I did. I don't know if you remember, Bianca, but I also thought about, because I used to work at Cracker Barrel. That was one of my jobs through college. And we had the system where people could come in and you paid it was like $30, but you picked out any audio book, it was CD at the time, from this like turn style display. And the whole point was that when you got down the road, you could exchange it at another Cracker Barrel. So you paid the $30 one time, but you just kept exchanging it, right? And
that's pretty cool.
It was always old people or older people. So I thought that it was like for older people. But I ended up joining my neighborhood's book club at the time and thought, okay, I don't have a lot of time to devote to this book. I'm going to try it. I'm going to get an audio. And that was like the hook of it. And it was like my brain, I retained everything, right? And since then, obviously, audiobooks have gained hugely in popularity. There are educators using them. Even parents of young readers may be tempted to dismiss them because I've heard the words like it's cheating or unrigorous. But the reason I wanted to talk to you guys about it today is, one, I am, like I said, I am from the standpoint of it is considered reading because your brain is still actively soaking in that knowledge. It's just in a different form. Would you tell a person that didn't have eyesight that they were not reading if they listened to an audiobook? Probably not. So I think they're for everyone too. Research, though, has suggested that audiobooks can actually aid in the development of very key literacy skills. Bianca is the one that usually takes care of our show notes. I have asked her to include the specific article that I'm taking information from, as well as another one from the New York Times. If you would like to read either one of these for yourself, a lot of the key points I'm going to be talking about right now are from readingpartners.org. And then in this article, it links you to the New York Times article as well. But they have found in research that it aids in the development of some very key literacy skills, especially in students who dislike reading, have trouble sitting still, or like me, have ADHD, people that have dyslexia, and even other learning abilities. And I think that's fantastic. The New York Times article goes into more depth of why listening is not considered cheating. And there's a psychologist, Daniel T. Willingham, that explains that reading and listening are actually very similar tasks. And sometimes when decoding or figuring out letter-sound relationships, it's kind of like automatic, and the mental processes involved in reading and listening are essentially one and the same, especially when it's narrative text. So basically, if you're one of those people that maybe you haven't mastered phonics or gained sufficient fluency, or you have dyslexia, for me, ADHD, decoding is like an additional cognitive load that can kind of prevent you from language processing skills and comprehending text. I've told you about this before, Bianca, but I asked you once, I was like, have you ever sat and looked at a page and you've reread the same sentence 4 times and you're still like, what? Where was I at? What did that say? That's what my brain does sometimes. So audiobooks kind of take that away. I also really do well. This is not from the article. It's just something that I would like to point out. I do really well with something called body doubling. I actually did this with Bianca one day via Marco Polo, but I also do it like with my mom, basically on phone. And what that is where you either call someone or FaceTime or even listen to a podcast, audiobook, or whatever. And because that thing is happening, you tend to be more productive in other areas. So I use audiobooks a lot of times as a form of body doubling. I will clean my house. I have a job where I'm physically active the whole time I am at work currently. And I will listen to an audiobook. 90% of the time I'm listening to an audiobook. And I actually have noticed my production at work is higher when I have the audiobook in, and I'm retaining it more. So I know Bianca laughs at me and she's like, how do you finish so many books? Honestly, this is how I do, because I'm doing the laundry or cleaning or washing dishes. I know some people can't do that. I have another friend that is ADHD that he told me he can't do that because his brain is one of those brains that has to focus on one single task. I have an ADHD brain where it is overactive and I need all of the little parts doing something. But I really wanted to share this because I think it's really important that we, one, don't judge people for how they read, how they learn, how they take in information. And two, the fact that we now have like research data to back up how important audiobooks can be to some listeners. And Bianca said, like, because it was my birthday and she asked me, what do I want to talk about? I've actually been wanting to talk about this for a few months. I know it's very controversial and I understand, but I really would like encourage all of you to maybe not listen to an audiobook, because I also know it's not for everyone. Like, it's very hard for you, isn't it, Bianca?
Yes, audiobooks? I cannot do audiobooks.
Is it that you just don't feel like you're paying attention, or are you having to like go back and re-listen?
I zone out.
Okay.
Like, I will just zone out and I'll be like, wait, what? Like 5 minutes later.
And I'm not saying like, because my friend that I mentioned, he does have ADHD, and I know, as far as we know, you do not, but he does the same thing. It's like you also have a brain that you're like, I am doing this task. This is what I need to do.
Well, see, and I can listen to music or something. Well, okay. Maybe so, because I listen to music that I already know. I can't listen to something new.
Right.
So maybe that's my problem, is I have to like concentrate on one thing at a time.
It would make sense. Because even my husband's like, I cannot do an audiobook. He's like, nope, can't do it. And he also has you guys have a lot of similarities and things like that. I think that's why I gravitate towards you as a friend as well. Like, you guys have a lot of similarities.
But I'm your husband replacement.
Aww. But yeah, I really would like to open up the dialogue more on, audiobooks. And I'm not asking people to suddenly listen to audiobooks or even like take part in that, because they're either for you or they're not. And then there are other research that I wobble on that goes with audiobooks. There is research, it says, that tells us that audio elicits more of an emotional effect than written words. And I think I agree to disagree with that part, at least. And then they also said listening to a human voice tell a story is a different experience. I will agree with that one, I think. But I kind of associate it to like one of the things I loved in school, especially elementary school, was when the teacher always took time. I'm sure you had the same thing, that they would read a story to the whole class. Or usually a lot of times elementary school teachers would pick a book or a book series and they would read like a chapter a day. And that was one of my most favorite moments of class, is when the teacher was reading, and we weren't reading to like each other. I enjoyed reading in general, but
you don't say.
I just like how audiobooks can really foster an educational independence. It can spurn a love of reading that maybe a person didn't know that they had. And it allows people that really struggle with reading in general, or like they said, being able to sit still or have comprehension, or my son described it once when he's trying to read like books as he goes cross-eyed. He's like, it's like my eyes cross. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me. So if you would like to know more about audiobooks and literacy, there are extra articles that you can look at. It even explains like where you can find audiobooks for free if you're interested, both children's and adults. Of course, I talk about Audible a lot, which I don't want to like get my hopes up, but fingers crossed. I have put in to Audible for Bianca and I to maybe have a code we can share with you soon, where you can get 1 month of Audible for free. But remember, Libby, they have two names. It's like Libby Overdrive, correct?
Libby bought Overdrive, so it's just Libby now.
Is it no? I know at one point you could still get both apps, or both apps still
No,
work,
it's just Libby now.
Libby now. Okay. But you can also get audiobooks via the library on Libby. There are several children's audiobook sites you can get as well. So if you are an audiobook lover, please share that with me. Share with me what your favorite place to get audiobooks is. If you are not, again, I'm not asking you to be, but I would like you to really like read this information. The article that I basically followed along with today is Listen and Learn: How Audiobooks Can Support Literacy Development, which I know you're like, but I'm not a kid. I don't need literacy development. No, but we all started somewhere. And I really love that there's now research backing my stance on I stand with audiobooks. 12 years of audiobook listening. I think I have like 1,500 audiobooks in my Audible library.
Good grief.
You're gonna die, but I have to tell you, as of like a month ago, I no longer listen to it on regular speed either.
How fast do you listen?
Currently, I am moved up to 1.8.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. It's really good, and this is going to sound strange, but a lot of audiobooks I tend to listen to, for some reason, have British authors, and their cadence to their speech is different. I love British speech patterns, but anyway, it's really good for that. But I tried to bump it back down to my normal, which is 1, and now everybody talks too slow.
That's how, when I listen to podcasts, I normally put it on like 1.5 speed.
Yeah. So you get it then. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just sped it up. And you know what? Those 40-hour audiobooks drop down by a lot when you listen to 1.8 speed. And I kind of can attribute it to kind of like how you read, which I still read like normal and I read every single word, but I kind of attribute it to kind of like the way you read. It cuts out like it goes past the stuff that you really don't need. Because apparently in audio form, I don't need all of that. I don't understand it. Will never understand it. I would have talked longer about that. I had more to say about audiobooks, but I felt like we talked a lot about Alice stuff tonight. So I just kind of wanted to briefly share that. So I appreciate you so much for letting me kind of like choose everything here. Thank you.
Well, now we can choose really quickly our recent reads and acquisitions.
Okay.
I'll go first. I've got my stack in front of me. I'm ready to go.
Go for it.
One of my recent reads, which Miranda knows because I texted her about it, is How to Sell a Haunted House by Gary Hendrix. I've read Gary Hendrix before. This was my third or fourth book by him.
Which is surprising because typically, quote unquote, horror is not your choice.
Yeah, and this one was definitely horror. I read the Southern Book Guides Club to Vampires, and I read Horror Store, and I think I read another one of his, but I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But this one was definitely horror. Trigger warning, it involves dolls and puppets. I did not know that when I picked it up. If I would have known that, I might not have read it.
I remember that message you sent, Susan and I, and you were like, trigger warning, dolls and puppets. And her and I were like, cool. Yeah. Bianca was like, no.
I was reading it at work on a break, and I got so creeped out, and a patron coughed in the library, and I had to, like, flinched. I put the book down. I was like, nope, we are done for the day.
I'm sorry. Oh, God. Okay.
So, if you want a good horror book, I do recommend How to Sell a Haunted House. It was a good read. It was super creepy.
Oh, that's great. I will have to mention that. I'm in a book group for people that like spooky things, and there was one girl complaining that, like, nothing creeps her out. Like, nothing has worked. I'll have to mention that one to her.
Now, these are some acquisitions I've gotten that I have not read yet. Okay. I got one from the library called Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi.
I think I almost bought that one the other day.
It's basically this dude sits in a coffee shop with a cup of coffee, and these people basically have a task to do before the coffee gets cold. And it's my understanding that it might be a series of short stories that all relate to that cup of coffing, but I haven't read it yet. So
my understanding of that is also the same, because when I saw it at the bookstore on the English thing when my mom was here. Of course, we went to the bookstore on my birthday, but I was looking at it, and there were two books by the same name with a different cover, and I realized it's all the same. It's just different stories in regards to the title, like Until the Coffee Gets Cold. Yeah. And I, from what I can tell, you don't have to read one specifically before the other. They're all just different stories.
Yes. These are ones that I have purchased. This is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. It's kind of like Groundhog Day. She keeps dying. She has to figure out it's a whodunit. It's a mystery.
I'm here for it.
I got this one because the title made me laugh. Murder Your Employer, Volume 1, The McMaster's Guide to Homicide.
Yes, please.
It's by Rupert Holmes. It's supposed to be a dark academia book, so I'm very excited about it. And then the tome that I just picked up, listen to this.
I heard it. No, I heard it before you even said listen to this. I was like, what the heck?
It's a tome. It is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, Sanderson is the king of tome writing.
I got this for $2 at a used book sale, and it's hardcover. But it's probably a good 6 inches thick.
What is it again? King of what?
The Way of Kings.
The Way of Kings, sorry.
Yeah. It's like Brandon Sanderson's like #1 book, basically. I'm trying to see how many
Stormlight Archive,
pages.
it says.
It's over 1,000 pages.
1,007 pages.
Yeah.
But it has gotten a lot of it's been nominated a lot for several literacy awards.
Yes.
Fantastic.
She a tome. We'll get to her when we get to her.
Well, I feel sorry for you, honey, because I just looked it up and they're like 10 books total. He's not written them all, but there's like 10 books to this series.
Oh, I know.
He's the king of world building. Oh my God.
I'm going to love Brandon Sanderson. I've always known that my entire life. I just never picked him up because his books are so long and so in depth. For only $2, I was like, I cannot pass up a $2.
Honestly, because of how well I know you and I know what you like, the meat of what you really love to read, I think you're going to love Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, I really do. But the problem is he writes tomes.
Yeah.
He's big. If you're not familiar with Brandon Sanderson, he's a big epic fantasy dude. Real big in the epic fantasy world. And most his are not YA though. They are
they're normal fantasy
adult. Yeah. I think he has some that more border science fiction, but he does a lot of high fantasy, epic fantasy, adult books.
Well, anything you've picked up, Miranda?
Yes. So I had one I told you and Susan about the other day. I have now finished it and highly recommend it. It is not out in paperback yet. It is releasing on June 15th of this year. It will be 304 pages long. I was given a free audio copy. If you are an Audible member, it actually is available now already in advance. It is called Morgan Is My Name by Sohpie Keetch. It is the word I see come up a lot in people's reviews. I haven't written mine yet, but I did give it 5 stars. It's a feminist retelling of the very early life of the famed villainess Morgan Le Fay, set against a very colorful backdrop of Arthurian legend. Basically, Uther Pendragon murders her father and tricks her mother into marriage. Morgan basically refuses to be crushed by Uther and is trapped kind of like the machinations of men in a world where basically men are in charge, isolated in castles, and there's gossiping courts. In this, she discovers she is a very wonderful healer. And this is when she discovers her secret powers, which is not giving anything away because she's Morgan Le Fay. If you know who she is, you know she's got powers. It's very brilliant. She's very vengeful. And if you know anything about Arthurian legend, you know she is going to come up against Merlin, who is obviously very influential sorcerer to King Uther. What I loved about this is typically I am a huge Merlin fan, especially the original, I think it was BBC Sci-Fi Channel TV show Merlin. I like Merlin himself as a character. He's always been one of my favorites from Arthurian legend, but him being a not good person and Uther not being a good person and Morgan being the one you root for, I was beyond here for it. Sohpie Keetch is a fantastic writer. If I am not mistaken, this is her debut novel. I looked her up and I don't see that she has written anything else. She has no Goodreads presence of any kind that I can find. And when you Google her name, the first thing that comes up is her book on Goodreads. So I don't really know much about her. I have found her on Instagram and I did start following her. All I can say based on reading this book of hers, this debut novel, is, ma'am, please keep writing. What I love about it is she's so powerful and, technically they call her Morgana or Morgan, and she will flat out look at people and she'll be like, my name is Morgan. That's it. Like, my name is Morgan. So the title itself is also very powerful and explains a lot of what she's written. Highly recommend this. Like I said, if you are an Audible person, if you are an audiobook person, it is available now. If not, June's not that far away. But you can pre-order a copy of the book. The cover is gorgeous, as well. So.
Wait, it says it's available. Like, it was published last October.
Well, I know it's not available everywhere because apparently she's Australian, it looks like. But I was told by the publisher it's not available yet.
Okay, on Goodreads it says published October 6, 2022.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was told expected publication date, it was June 15th.
Interesting.
First published date was October 6th of 2022, but I believe maybe she either indie published or it was, you know how sometimes, like, if you're a British author, it's published there first and then it comes to the other countries.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think that's what took place. But as far as being an American reader, I was told to tell everybody June 15th.
Okay.
If you find it available now, absolutely go for it. Fantastic retelling. As I mentioned before, retellings I am here for. And this one was one that got 5 stars. I think I maybe have only ever given, or not ever, but I think this year so far, this is maybe only like my second 5-star read. So. The other 2 I want to mention, I have not finished yet, but I already highly recommend. The first one I found out about from one of my favorite book talkers. She is on Book Talk as Meg's Tea Room. She's this fantastic, curly-headed, bubbly, beautiful lady from Nashville who loves reading, and I think I have talked about her before. I found her a couple of years ago when you and I heavily started TikToking videos to each other. And I think at the time it was just like Meg's Books or something like that. But she recommended a book called Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. And if you like cozy fantasy, cozy adventure, this is for you. There was a tagline that sold me that said, "You like tea, I like books, care to open a shop and forget the world exists."
I'm in. I'm sold. Let me read it.
There is a murderation fight scene that happens like within the first 3 pages because she is the Queen's Guard. She's part of the Queen's Guard. So if you don't like the explanation of blood and guts, you might not be here for it. It is cozy mystery romance fantasy. The main couple is female. They're adorable. All they want to do is like open a bookshop that serves tea and like not worry about the rest of the world. And I love it.
Honestly, same, but change it to coffee instead of tea.
Yeah, I love tea. Love tea. So I was like, yes, please. It is from the Tomes and Tea Cozy Fantasy series. Book number 2, I believe, either just came out. Yes, it just came out. It's called A Pirate's Life for Tea. Fantastic. Lovely books. I actually started reading this one before my mother came for her visit. And I didn't really read anything while she was here. So after she left, I decided, even since I was only like 3 chapters in, I was going to completely restart it. I can already tell you, I'm pretty sure this is going to be another 5-star. Freaking-tastic so far. I haven't finished it. It's 339 pages on Kindle. That is the only edition I have found. I think there is a paperback, but it's paperback and ebook. It's the only way to get it. Only way. So highly recommend that one as well. Like I said, haven't finished it. The other one I'll talk about briefly. I might go into more depth for later. It was another one that I was given that does not come out. It actually comes out finally on April 4th of this year. It's 304 pages in hardcover form. I received a free ebook copy early for my honest review. This is the one, Bianca, that I sent you a message and was like, I have to read this book, and I hate the main character. Hate the main character. It's considered a twisty domestic suspense about a clique of mothers that shatter when one of their own is murdered, bringing chaos to their curated lives. The main character, which...
Miranda, what's the title? You never said the title.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It's Dirty Laundry by Disha Bose. It does come out in April, so just a few weeks. But if you are interested, there is a giveaway you can enter right now on Goodreads. Gosh, that's still going to be up for like the next 5 days. They're giving away 50 different copies to U.S. only residents. But what I would consider the main character, there's kind of a couple of main characters, but I think one is more prominent than the other, and I did not like her. I don't like her. Her name is Sierra Dunphy, and she has it all. Loving husband, well-behaved children, beautiful home. And she has her circle of friends in their small Irish village that they all go to her for tips about mothering, style. She is an influencer. She shows basically her picture perfect, easygoing, beautiful life on Instagram. But that's not the truth of her life, and it's very messy. She has a best friend, Mishti, which I don't know how to say her last name. I think it's Guha, Guha. And Mishti comes into the fold. She's kind of a quiet, shy young lady who comes to Ireland from another country. She's cold all the time. They describe her as maybe like after having a child, she's gained a little bit of weight, so she's not happy with herself. Her marriage is arranged, and she's not really happy with that either, but she has Sierra. And then the other kind of quote-unquote main character is Lauren Doyle, who's bred. She's from this Irish village. She's sadly the butt of all the jokes, and she's very upfront and honest about this like carefree, disheveled life. Children running amok, like running away from her naked in the yard, but they're happy. They're just very ostracized by the whole world that Sierra has created, her fake immaculate world. But Lauren and Mishti end up finding kind of like unlikely ally in each other, even though Mishti is Sierra's best friend. But no, this is no spoiler. This happens pretty quickly. Sierra is found murdered in her very own pristine home, and the house of cards that she's worked so hard to build kind of comes crumbling down for everyone to see. And it seems that like everyone that you read about, that you come in contact with character-wise, benefits from Sierra dying. So it is a whodunit. Like I said, her dying comes extremely early in the book. It jumps back and forth time-wise. Like the chapters are broken up by like the day. It'll say like December whatever of the year, and then it'll jump. So that was not confusing because it says it at the beginning of the chapter, but I at first didn't love that. I was like, wait. You just murdered her? Go back to that. So they tell you a little bit about all three of the main characters in like the first like 2 chapters, and then they murder her, or someone murders her. I'm not going to say who. I'm not saying them as in like the group, but then the person murders her, and they tell you she's found dead, and then they go back to all of the things that happened leading up to her murder. And that's why I kept messaging you going, I don't like her. I hate her from the get-go. So.
I'm sorry.
I know. The book itself was very good. Disha Bose writes an excellent story. And I think as you get further into the story, you're not supposed to like Sierra. I think that's the whole point. You're not supposed to like her. This is another author. This is her debut novel. I love how she intertwines love and deceit in a common everyday world. The fact that Sierra is an influencer, and not everyone can be an influencer. And it's kind of like this wonderful tale of a group of women all at the end of the day trying to fit in and but also preserve themselves. It is considered a psychological thriller, mystery thriller. It's really good. I would highly recommend it. I haven't given it my star rating yet because I haven't turned in my review yet. But I'm really wavering with like 3.5, 4. And I think I want to go to 3.5 only because of how much I hated Sierra. And there was one point in the book, I won't lie, there's one point in the book where I think to myself, oh, this is why she is the way she is. I do feel a little sorry for her now. And so you think, okay, here's the moment where you now feel sorry for the person. And in the very next paragraph, she says something to basically, well, I know where I came from and I don't have to be like that, but I am. And I'm like, never mind, still hate you. So those are my recent reads and acquisitions combined.
That works.
The only other recent acquisition, I did buy a few books for myself for my birthday, but I'll save those for later. The only one I will go ahead and tell you about because you've talked about it a lot. I have decided to join the clan, and I purchased a physical copy of Daisy Jones and the Six.
Yes.
But I won't watch it until I read it. I have a weird thing about that. I don't know. I'd rather read before watch.
Which cover did you get? The white cover or the movie cover or the show cover?
I think it's just the traditional white cover. It's the cover I've seen for a long time.
Okay, good. Where
it's like, it says Daisy Jones and the Six in a white spot, and then there's like a picture in the dead center.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I got. And
okay,
it actually was reasonably priced. It was a paperback. Sometimes I have to pay more for books than I normally would because, one, I'm buying English in a non-English speak. Well, that's not the non-English speak. English is not the main language here. So it was like €10.50. I was pretty pleased with that. And there was one copy left, so I was like, it's mine.
Well, everybody, if you enjoyed this, you'll probably enjoy our Instagram page as well. You can find us there at Bells with Books Podcast. It's a cartoon drawing of Miranda and I together.
Yeah. Shout out to our artist, Steffi. Thanks. You rock.
Head there for any updates in between recordings. You can also find me personally on Instagram. I'm at Style & Freak. If you find our podcast, you can link me there. I'm also on TikTok. I'm at Style & Freak there as well. And Miranda, where can we find you?
So a couple of places you can find me. Of course, I am comfortable with people reaching out to me on both TikTok and Instagram. Those are public profiles. Both are at Mom's a Nerd. Technically, my Instagram handle is not at Mom's a Nerd, but if you type that in, you get me. So yeah, I think I've said this like every episode now. I'm just like, I don't know what's holding me back. I want to become a book talker in some way. But for now, if you follow me on TikTok, it's a lot of just different random videos of like me taking the train and like adventures of living as an American in Germany and Europe. So if you'd like to see that, come follow me there. Of course, I'd like to direct everyone to our Place to Be Nation Facebook group. It's just called Place to Be. Yes, if you join, there is a good bit of wrestling speak. But right now we have a tournament for the best breakfast foods, which has brought some animosity I was not expecting. But I'd like to... we're trying to diversify. There really is something for everyone here at Place to Be Nation. So if you'll check out and join the Facebook group, if that's something that you are inclined to do. We also have the Place to Be Nation website where you can get the back catalog of all of the Bells with Books pods that we have done already up until this point. Because I think we're almost at 1 year, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, we're just about at 1 year mark. So woo woo. So yeah, if this is the first time hearing us, you can go back there and back catalog all of them. And I know you hear this a lot from every podcaster you listen to, but it really would mean a lot. I know we are part of a collective feed, but that doesn't mean that you can't review our little show as an individual. So if you would like, and you could do so, you can review us on whatever podcasting place you listen to us, Spotify, Google Feed, any of those. And you can specifically say, hey, I'm here on Place to Be Nation because of Bells with Books, and that would mean a lot to us. I just want to give a shout out also to our producer, Andy, because we are over the place sometimes because of life with recording, but we get it done. So thank you, Andy, for always taking care of us. And thank you to the listeners. We know this was a super long one this time, but I appreciate you guys letting me yammer on about things I love. So glad to have you here with us. Hope you enjoy almost 3 hours of this. And you come back for more later at maybe a more reasonable length. And until then, keep reading.